Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Deckin Around. My name is Tyler.
I am Steve.
And today we are so excited to have Kevin Hoe on the show. So if you don't know Kevin Hoe, Kevin is a former member of the Virts. He is the creative mind behind Momentum playing cards. He has his recently released ArrowDynamix Deck. And honestly, Kevin's just an all-around awesome guy. We had a great time talking to him during the pre-show, and we think you guys are going to have a great time chatting it up with Kevin tonight.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually had a 2.5-hour conversation with him our test night.
Yeah, turned into a long, fun chat. So I have to say, I'm excited for tonight's call.
This is kind of our second episode with Kev.
Without a doubt. But before we jump into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let's take a quick moment out to thank our sponsors. Doc's Playing Cards, the driving force behind Lit Playing Cards, Juice Joints, and McClure and Stark. Keep an eye out for what's to come next in 2020. Follow along at Doc's Playing Cards on Instagram or docsplayingcards.com.
Marvelous decks, masterfully crafted, meticulously recreated with a specialized printing process that utilizes multiple holographic foils and sculpted embossing. No compromises were made when recreating these feathers at a zoomed-in scale. Pre-sale starts 9/26/2020. Stay tuned for remaining details. MarvelousDecks.com or Marvelous Decks on Instagram.
All right. Well, thank you to Doc's Playing Cards and Marvelous Decks. And without further ado, here is Kevin.
Kevin Hoe.
What's up, Kevin?
Yo?
How you doing, man?
How's it going, guys? I'm doing good. It's a nice Thursday evening here over in Massachusetts. Just enjoying the stream and a little bit of coffee.
Massachusetts.
I'm outnumbered here now. We're all East Coasters, which is great, but Massachusetts is now outnumbering New Jersey, so this may be an interesting live here.
Yeah, that's Jackson's actually in the room, and he's like, "Let's get this thing going."
Oh my gosh.
Like I have no allegiances to anywhere. I was born in Hartford, raised in Singapore, went to school in California, came back. So like people ask me where I'm from, I'm like, you tell me.
There you go. All right, I'm feeling a little bit better about it then. It should be maybe a little more mellow then. I know Steve has the Boston angle covered, so you seem a little more level-headed. We'll see how it plays out.
Are you saying I'm not level-headed?
Steve, I'll let the audience decide. So Kevin, how have you been though, man? How has all this quarantine and life in general been treating you recently? I know you recently came out with the deck. Like a lot has been going on for you.
Yeah, I just released ArrowDynamix a month ago, and the reception for it was pretty great. We sold out in less than a week, and there are a lot of my friends they've been posting stuff on social media. Just today, Nikita Yatsik just posted a video of him using them, and he had a lot of cool applications for it and stuff, which I love to see. I love to see anyone taking this concept and trying to like develop on it, add applications, demonstrate different things you can do with it that I wouldn't have thought was possible. So it's always great seeing that.
That really is so cool.
Definitely cool. One thing we need to touch up on is this. Let's see if that will focus in.
Yep, there it is.
For those of you that don't know, up, down, left, right. Can anybody say what that's from?
BA.
BA, and then start.
Yeah.
Which I absolutely love. I think there's so many like cool little like touches to this deck. I'm curious, how did you really kind of come about with the idea initially?
The idea started with a conversation that I had with Chris Severson. Do you guys know Chris?
I'm not familiar with him.
Magician, cardist, yo-yoist, yo-yoer, all around cool guy.
All right.
So we were having a chat, and I just suggested the notion of like, what if a deck of cards told you what to do? And so his brain started going in this direction where he developed the technique playing cards, which is a pack of cards that has like colors on the sides of it, so that you can say maybe you want to only use the blue sides for grips, and then you'll like create a move or try to come up with something using only blue or green or purple or pink or whatever. But I went into a different direction where I just kind of saw an image of this deck of cards where arrows were pointing all sorts of different directions. And I got some spare time, and I took a blank card and I drew an arrow on it. And I just kind of like that image of the original ones were just like a black arrow on a white blank playing card.
Nice.
And that was the first kind of thing with it. It was like figuring out, just how it would affect spins and directions of moves and whatnot. And then I added another arrow on the face of that, which was a sideways arrow. So it was a vertical arrow on the back and then a sideways arrow on the side.
That's awesome.
And this led me to develop things like the airwalk sequence from the demo video from 2016, where you have like the card here, and then it's just following the arrow sequence when you're doing certain moves with it, right? So there's like a loop that you could do like this and so on.
That is so awesome.
Dude, this would be great for isolations, huh?
Yeah. Like
we need to get a deck to Anna de Guzman.
Yep. Or definitely. Like I can't do this very well, but
we got a little bit of lag there, Kevin. But we're good now.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, but you can see like having the arrows like pointed to each other throughout the whole magnetic baton sequence, the one that Zach popularized. It worked with the arrows, and a lot of things end up working logically with these too. So it was kind of a way to introduce like logic, intuition, simplicity, minimalism into a deck of cards. And it started off as just 4 cards that you would add to the deck you were using. And over time, I developed it into an actual full deck, which is what it is now.
It's so cool. And it really does. It visually like works so well. Like I'm sure being an avid cardist yourself, you put a lot of thought into it. But like from my point of view, just seeing it, it's mesmerizing how well it works.
Yeah, one application for it is to obviously, stack the cards in a certain way and try to do stuff that makes it so the arrows are flowing in the direction of the movements. But these days, I've just been using it for random moves, and it's nice to see the arrows move around in chaotic directions. It's freestyling.
I'm sure, because they have a nice like I feel like a lot of times people for cardistry like circular elements in the back of the card because it creates kind of a hypnotic effect. But the arrow adds almost a little bit of a, something else visual it's eye-catching because you have something that's fixed and all of a sudden the head of the arrow goes in a direction you're not expecting and it draws your eye over there. It really it does, like you said, it does create that chaotic aspect of it, but that makes it so much more exciting.
Oh, definitely. I think there were some arcade games that were like that too, where you had a ball that was hitting around, being ricocheted around inside of like a closed area, and then you have all these arrows.
What was that called? Was that
I forget.
What was that called? Everybody, what's that called? The ball.
Pachinko? Plinko?
No. Somebody will get it.
Right. Someone in the comments will get it.
Yeah. Somebody will get it. We'll let them think about it.
Not my problem.
Exactly. Now I have a question about, basically the face cards, because a lot of cardistry decks, something that's geared towards cardistry, doesn't actually have the, the indices and pips, up in the corner. What made you, go with that rather than just arrows?
So there's a few reasons. One of the reasons is so that people who wanted to play games with them could play games with them. I also noticed something that happened with non-standard playing cards, such as the School of Cardistry decks and the Cardistry Touch decks, and I think Neon, is that what they call it? There's another one that USBC put out, where it's also a non-standard face. After mixing the cards for a while and having them all look the same, it kind of feels like you're not making any progress when you're shuffling them. There's something about the idea that your flourishing is actually doing something that makes you feel like it's kind of productive.
Right.
So it's nice to have that ability to feel like you're really shuffling the cards up. And another reason for it within the context of Aerodynamics specifically is that the red and black cards are different. So here are 2 backs of the cards, but the faces are pointing in different directions.
Right.
Okay.
So this allows you to use like the black cards in a certain configuration so that they're fixed to have, say an up pointing arrow this way, and then one pointed that way, and then have this pointed the other way so that you can stack them accordingly or basically have predictable outcomes depending on what the color of the card is.
It's really cool.
So it used to be that if you wanted to do an L-cut sequence that made sense with Aerodynamics, you'd have to do a right-handed L-cut for it to work with just the original orientation it was in. But now you can split them into red and blacks, and it'll work for either hand. based on how they're set up. So
It's,
yeah,
it's so
card
cool that
games.
there's so much to know about. Like, it's just crazy because I mean, Tyler and I haven't dived, we haven't dived into cardistry too much at all. So it's cool seeing these different scenarios and just the logic behind, different cuts and stuff like that. And, using cards to kind of see your momentum, so to, no pun intended, but that just to see your progress and to see, how you're creating different sequences is really cool.
Yeah. It helps with the stacking too. So if you're putting the deck in a certain order for it to, to do certain moves with it, then having each card have a unique identifier, aka the indices, really helps to put them in the order that you need it to be. To do certain moves.
That's cool.
I think that's one of the areas that I'm always fascinated about cardistry versus, Magic when it comes to cards in general, is cardistry really puts so much thought into the simplicity and the complexity of a movement of a card, whether it be a single card or all these cards in motion, obviously. And obviously that's kind of the point of it. But like the amount of detail that goes into the design of cardistry decks, to me, really is about the movement, whereas in Magic, a lot of the design elements that maybe make a Magic-specific deck stand out is more about either like markings or making it, look as similar to a standard deck of cards, things like that. So you have these two things that are like so different, because Magic, you want it to be subtle, and in cardistry, you want it to stand out. You want it to be noticed. You want it to be cohesive, or even if it's not cohesive, you want it to stand out in specific ways. And I think that's so cool. Like such a different approach to a deck of cards.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Tyler. And you made a good observation in that for Magic, you want to be more stealth, a bit more subtle, a bit more under the radar. But for cardistry, it's very much out and about and self-explanatory. So, another great example is what Chris Brown did with Orbits, where, there was a large fascination, as you guys said, with like circular shapes in cardistry. Yeah. That's why the tally-ho circlebacks were one of the best back designs used for cardistry earlier in the day, and loved by magicians as well. And so Chris kind of took that aspect, just put like a big circle with adornments on the back, and it's been a massive success over the past bunch of years. The Virts did the same thing too with the adaptive aesthetics decks, and having that functional circular symbol in the center surrounded by the geometric shapes around it, so that there's always like a point of focus for the eyes when you're doing moves like this.
Absolutely. And it makes sense, because there really can be so much movement that if you don't have those focal points, whether in the case of the Aerodynamics deck, it's the arrows and the angles to it, or the circles, or whatever element you have there as a focus element, it is easy to get lost in the more complex moves, because you almost as a spectator don't know where to look. So I think a lot of that does help bring in the focus to like the actual movement itself, not the necessarily, especially with like expanded creations, like the creation itself,
Yeah.
So how did you actually? Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I was just say some moves are so captivating. Sometimes I'll look at someone doing like a pirouette or something, something simple with a tally-ho or a vert or anything that has that circle element, and it's so cool, And even I'll give anyone a plug here and say even the dots by themselves, when people are doing stuff like that, that's where it really shines. So it's cool seeing different things like that. And for me, just when you were doing the simple moves with the arrows, it really is trippy, when watching it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So Tyler, you were about to say something?
Yeah. So actually, my kind of question there is, and we discussed this a little bit on our pre-show call, is you've obviously been in cardistry for a while now. You've kind of gone through several iterations of kind of your cardistry career, we'll call it. But what really got you interested in cardistry from the jump?
So I have an article on my blog called Love on Second Sight. And it's about the idea that sometimes you encounter something in your life and it doesn't really make a big impression on you at first. And it's not until later on when you reconsider it or are reintroduced to it or reevaluate it that you really come to appreciate it. And sometimes that can be something that becomes an ongoing fascination, obsession, or love in your life that you never had thought that you would experience that with before. So
like me and Tyler.
I don't even know how to take that, but thanks.
Yeah, so friendships can be like that too. And for me, I had as a magician, because I got into magic before cardistry. I got into
So
magic in
cool.
2002, and I was working at a magic shop around the time that I got into cardistry. But before that, I had seen flourishes before. I saw Brian Tudor show off. I watched Cap Casino's Cap Cuts DVD. I've seen some flourishes online, and I was like, "That's cool," but it looks like it takes too much work, and I'm kind of lazy. And I don't want to have to go up into a mountain and train for 12 years in order to become some kind of guru
Yeah.
at doing flourishes. So I was working at the magic shop, and I had opened up that day, just vacuuming the floor and whatnot before opening hours were before before we were ready to open. And this tall, lanky Asian guy was outside, and he asked if he could come in. And I didn't want to be rude, so I invited him in. He sat down on the stool. I went behind the counter, and we just sort of like chatted for a little bit. And I asked him like, "Hey, so who's some of your favorite magicians?" And he's like, "Oh, Bill Malone, Greg Wilson." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. This guy's got taste." And I was like, "Well, since we're here, do you mind showing me something?" And I gave him a pack of cards, and he showed me, Brian Tudor's What the Hell Happened to Sybil. He showed me the Anaconda. He showed me all these crazy moves that I've never seen in person before.
That's awesome.
That guy was Bone Ho, like one of the pioneers of.
And he had the same last name as you?
Yeah, he does. We're not related.
That's cool. That's cool.
Except maybe through Genghis Khan. But yeah, meeting Bone changed my life. Like, there was something about watching it in person and seeing how fascinating it looked, without the video screen in the way. That was like, this is actually possible. Someone can actually do this, and not just have it be a lucky take on a video.
Right.
It made me realize that I wanted to see stuff like that all the time without having to watch a video of it or ask someone else to do it for me.
Nice.
And that meant I had to learn it myself. And so I started off with whatever resources there were at the time. There was like Jeff McBride's DVDs, the aforementioned Brian Tudor and Cap Casino DVDs, and I think some Hand Lords tutorials that were floating around. But I think Cradle to Grave was out at that time too. So I started that, and soon after, my friend Justin, aka Jaspis, started to get into it as well. My friend Huron, I met him at a magic shop, and we, kind of had an ongoing progress report as fellow friends and rivals in cardistry. Just wanted to get better, to inspire the other person to do the same.
That's cool.
Right.
And it just kind of grew from there. So this was before YouTube. This was 2003. So
way
there
before
wasn't.
YouTube.
Yeah, this YouTube wouldn't be coming out for three more years, I believe.
Yeah.
So what we had back then was this website called thecheaterscheater.com. It was kind of like Technique before Technique. And it was a social network, before social networks were really a thing, where you could just post videos of yourself doing awesome stuff. Mostly cards, but also pen spinning, contact juggling, switchblade manipulation, or balisong, I think is what they call it, yo-yos, everything. And there was like a featured section on the site. So if you were good enough, then during the week you get featured at the top of the site, and that was kind of everyone's goal to become one of the big bads on there. And there were tiered rankings on the site as well, which you don't really see these days. So there were like regular members, elite members, and then there was like special categories for like people who are really good at magic, people who are really good at flourishing, and people who are really good at both magic and flourishing. So if you were an awesome magician, you would get promoted to the rank of Illuminati. That's what they would like put under your name. And if you were really good at flourishes, they give you the nickname Hands, HANDZ. And if you were awesome at both flourishing and magic, you'd be called The Thing. And one of the first things on the site was the Rain Man, who we now know as Daniel Madison. So this was Daniel Madison posting his black and white videos without any speaking, just doing cool, awesome card stuff way back in the day. And there was just so much mystique and intrigue and fascination with just the stuff because a lot of the stuff you would see on these sites was unprecedented. Most of what you see these days is built upon the backbone of previous moves that came before it. So if you see a cool packet cut, it's a cool packet cut. You already know what packet cuts are.
Yeah.
You see a cool aerial, you know what an arrow is. You see a cool cascade, you know what a cascade is. But like back then, people were literally inventing the vocabulary of cardistry like on the go. So
Yeah.
you would often log into a site and then you see something that you never even before dreamed was possible with the deck of cards. And that was awesome to be a part of back in the day.
That
And I
really is so
remember,
cool.
yeah, I remember very clearly because they had like a chat box on the side of the website, and I would like whenever I got out of class in high school, I would rush to the library and log in on the computers there, and I would just be on the chat box all the time with people there, and I was like, oh, it'd be so cool if we could do like a big meetup with everybody sometime, just some international location, and like have a big cheater shooter hangout. That obviously never happened, but it was the precursor to CardistryCon, which keeps growing every year. There isn't one this year for obvious reasons, but the ones that have come before us have been really great, and they keep improving every year.
That's so cool.
It's kind of interesting just seeing that Daniel Madison was the first person that was, I mean, he's always been the same person, right? Like just so good at what he does. It's kind of cool that he was back then the one that was always creating these really mystique videos, and to this day his videos are so far beyond everybody else's. I know some people complain about
Daniel Madison.
That was a really good impression, actually. Yeah. You can tell you've seen a lot of his videos.
Used to, yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting to see how much the art form really has evolved too. Like you said, from kind of a forum hobby, we'll call it, to something that's evolved to really, in my mind, I think probably has as much growth, if not more growth now, especially looking at the age segments, than Magic in a lot of cases. I think, we've discussed this with past guests, and Steve and I have discussed this as well. Like, I think a lot of people still enter the idea of playing cards via Magic at that maybe like 8 to 10 range. But then if you stick with it beyond that point and you hit like 11 to 13, a lot of people transition over to Cardistry, and a lot of new people are coming into it via Cardistry for the first time at that age point as well. And it seems like you have a much wider gap there of like ages that are interested in Cardistry from like 11 to like 20, which historically has always kind of, to me, been an age that people transition away from Magic because it's not necessarily cool, but like Cardistry has this cool vibe to it that seems to survive that, transition out.
Right. I think that one of the draws of Cardistry is that you don't necessarily need an audience to validate it. Magic has to be performed for it to have an impact, for it to become meaningful and be something substantial. Like, you can't fool yourself in the mirror. Like, what are you going to do? Like, oh, you got me. I got me.
Tyler does that.
I fooled myself a couple times.
Yeah, like Magic is best done with a live audience. Like I still do Magic to this day, and I love performing for people and watching reactions and stuff. But when you're quarantined and you're inside, or if you're just maybe a bit introverted or antisocial, cardistry just in itself is a very rewarding kind of loop. Aside from dropping cards all the time, as you practice, you get better, and the moves that you want to manifest begin to become this solid thing from an abstract idea. And I think that let me organize my thoughts real quick. A thing I've noticed too is that these days you have people getting into cardistry without going through Magic first. They just learn about it from seeing a viral video on, say, YouTube or Reddit. And without knowing anything about Magic, they are able to discover this whole world of just card manipulation, or extreme card manipulation, as they used to say. They don't say anymore. Myself and a lot of people who came up around my time are people who started off as magicians and then saw something like the Dan and Dave trilogy that got them interested in flourishes as well. And for a long time, cardistry was a subset of Magic, as we know, that you would have even the word flourish. It was the idea that you would add a flourish to a performance of Magic, so that if you wanted to have someone pick a card, the lapel spread would be like a flourishy way to do that, so that it would show that you're handling cards with grace and skill. But nowadays there's no context for it aside from itself. It's in and of itself, to kind of quote what Derek Elgadio was quoting. It's just a cool way to shuffle cards. The definition that I uploaded to Reddit a while ago of what cardistry was the art of creating fascination, movements, and formations with playing cards, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I think also that one of the differences between cardistry and Magic, when you take away the idea of a necessary spectator, is that there's no challenge aspect anymore.
Right.
Like, I don't enjoy watching Fool Us a lot because there is that challenge aspect of like either you're good or you didn't fool us, and you kind of feel that weight when the person comes on, and I'm like, I don't know, like I feel bad. But for cardistry, there's not that much of a personal stake in the outcome of it. If you perform a flourish and it's not that good and you just need to practice more, it doesn't mean that cardistry is bad.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think too, one of the cool things about cardistry, and not to say that the same amount of work doesn't necessarily go into Magic, but I think, and you even mentioned it earlier, Magic works great for live spectators. You could put a ton of work into a, whatever, a palm or like a technique in Magic. And when you get it to a point where you think you're good enough, it's satisfying, but you still need to go out there and see how well it plays for someone else. Did you do it as well as you thought you could? Whereas when you finally land a new like cardistry move by yourself in your room, you probably celebrate like crazy. Like you landed this, whether it's your first aerial or whatever it really is, even something as simple as, someone getting into it and doing their first like Charlier cut, like that's just satisfying in itself. Yeah, you want to go show it off to people, but knowing you did it for yourself, that's the real gratification moment, which I think is so cool.
Yeah. Oliver Sogard, another cardist, he joked about cardistry being an extreme sport a couple of years ago at one of his presentations at CardistryCon. But, I think that many magicians, when they perform, they're seeking to become the best magician ever. But for cardists, what many people seek instead is to make cardistry more awesome as a whole. It's a lot more of a community than a single individual person's, come up. So oftentimes when you have magicians performing for lay people, let's say I perform magic for people, and they're like, oh my God, Chris Angel, I saw him on TV and he did this thing and stuff. Can you do that? Can you make my wife disappear? Right? But when you do cardistry, it's really a way to legitimize the art form as it is, and you show it to people, and they're like, "Wow, I never knew that was possible with a deck of cards before." Yeah. And as you show them more things and kind of expand the view on it, their perception of what a deck of cards is and what it can do changes forever. And when they go online, maybe afterwards, and they look up cardistry online and they see all these cool videos and stuff, you are not any lesser than other cardists who are performing there, but you're a part of the narrative of what cardistry is.
Yeah.
Right.
So, because it's so easy to want, like, I've been to Magic conventions and I've seen, and I love Magic, but sometimes you go to Magic conventions and you just see the rate at which everyone's trying to one up each other all the time, and it gets really tiring, Yeah. Like, oh, that's cool, but let's check out this variation of Triumph, and you're like, okay, and you got to sit through like a 3-minute routine with shitty patter and like a disappointing ending. And you're just like nodding because you've been cornered and you're trying to be nice. Yeah. But at CardistryCon, what you see people like leaning over each other and like trying to follow along while one person is going through a in-person impromptu tutorial for one of their moves. It's very sharing. It's very open. It's very welcoming for the most part, I hope.
Yeah.
And yeah, like one of my friends, he said that I love magic, but I hate magicians. And while I may not agree with him 100% of the way, I kind of understand how he feels sometimes. Because, yeah. But I don't want to turn this into a whole, like, cardistry is better than magic.
I mean,
it's definitely not about that. I definitely think, it's interesting because just like any community, I think when you have two different styles, I guess you can call it styles within a specific community, even though they're totally different, they're the same community. There's always going to be that kind of battle, like my way is the better way. This is the original way, or you know what I mean. And I think, even within Magic, doing things the new way is looked bad upon. People are like, that's not the right way to do it. And I'm sure, it's just like rock climbing. When you have boulderers and you have like rope climbers,
right.
They never see. The traditional climbers are like, that's not rock climbing, and it's just the same way in this community,
And
sometimes I really wish people would just mind their own business.
Fair, and I think that's fair enough. And honestly, I think in small communities like Cardistry and Magic, sometimes that is the problem because they are such tightly woven communities. Everyone, maybe not everyone knows everyone, but everyone through one way or another knows everyone, and so there does seem to be a propensity for drama to arise. And it's funny because we talked about this the other day too, and I think you kind of just touched on it there a little bit as well, like the open nature of cardistry. And again, not going down the road of which is better than which, but I think there is just distinct differences there. And I think a lot of times people still look at cardistry as, oh well, that's really just card flourishing, but like it's so much more than that at this point. I think maybe 10-15 years ago you could have said, oh yeah, it's really, while it's still in its infancy, yeah, it's just card flourishing. But now like cardistry is its own own entity. It stands on its own, truly. And I think one of the great examples that we were talking about the other day is the fact that Magic, which is such a closed source, secretive community, versus Cardistry, which is open source, very, visible. Like there is nothing hidden about the art form. And so there is no way to really hide how you do something. And it's, at least from what I've seen, it doesn't make the community bitter that they can't hide their moves because they want them to only be theirs, but it makes them open to the idea, knowing that, well, I'm going to show this to the world and people are going to figure out how to do it. So I might as well, engage and embrace that.
Right. Yeah. I think that some people tend to forget that each art form has a different function too. Because with Magic, you're trying to astonish and amaze, and you do that through deception. And for cardistry, you're seeking to also amaze, but not with something impossible, but by showing people something that they didn't think was possible before they saw it. So an example I normally give is that, dancing is a terrible way of walking around. Like it's a terrible form of transport and really inefficient. But that's because dancing and walking are not meant to achieve the same effects.
Yeah.
Right.
So when some people try to hate on cardistry and they say like, oh, Magic is better because it does this, this, and this, and you can engage people more, and it's about audience interactions and doing something, meaningful in this way, I think that it feels kind of ignorant because they forget that with cardistry, it's not achieving this, seeking to achieve the same goals that Magic does, because Magic's very good at what it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
no,
I've
for sure.
I've been in situations where I've seen Magic that has given me like chills, legitimate goosebumps and chills that I find. And I love seeing good Magic, but there's also a lot of bad Magic out there, as we know. And it's the same ratio for cardistry too. There's a thing called Sturgeon's Law. Do you guys know about that?
Now,
Sturgeon's Law, in the colloquial definition, is this theory that 99% of everything is crap. 99% of everything is crap.
All right.
I can vouch for that.
So this came from like a science fiction context where, when a lot of people were hating on science fiction, this guy, last name Sturgeon, the law was named after him, posited that it's because 99% of science fiction is crap. And that happens to be the case with, movies, with music, any aspect of pop culture, any niche that you're in. Like sometimes people will look back and say like, man, 1979 was like the best year for movies. And if you really think about it, right, there were so many crappy movies released that year and every year, but it's only the ones that are really memorable, that were great, and that were significant that stand out and continue to stand the test of time.
Right.
Because right now, when we're in, the 10s and going on forth with the 20s, and we're seeing the movies that come out throughout the year, you can see which movies are good and bad as they go along. but only the good ones are going to last and be things that are remembered in years to come. So with cardistry, if a magician's only insight into it are quick Instagram explore videos of cardistry that is mediocre or not that good, then obviously their perception of it is going to be weak. And the same thing the other way around. That some cardists, whenever you see like an instant magic thing pop up on their explore page, and it's something that's cringy or like maybe more gimmicky than one would desire, or just seems kind of like posery or uncool, then that's the perception of what magic is. So, I'm not meaning to divide the arts in any sort of way. In fact, I think they both have a lot to learn from each other. Yeah. And I've got many very good friends who are magicians and also with cardists. And it's always interesting, like picking their brains on like, how the ultimate goal is to make the audience feel something. You want to make the person who's watching your video, have an emotional response to what you do. Right. And so for magicians, their audience are lay people. For cardists, their main audience is other cardists.
Yeah, which makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like, I mean, pretty much what you said is cardistry is better than magic, and magic is better than cardistry. So it all depends on what your goal is.
To specify, cardistry is better at magic at what cardistry does, and magic is better than cardistry at what magic does.
It depends on what your goal is, and that's where, which one is better. It's just like performers. Some people like to just sit down and not be dancing and going crazy, so you go see Nora Jones. If you want to dance and move around, maybe you go see Lady Gaga or something. But like, it's kind of the same idea. You can compare whatever you want, and they're both horrible and they're both great depending on what your goal is within them, right?
Yeah. Like we've all seen people at conventions who will do something and their breaks look like this. There's like a giant gap at the front.
Yeah.
But they're so into it and their magic persona that it just breezes over what they're doing. And I've seen people at cardistry conventions who their flow will look something like, and then they'll square the deck up for 5 minutes.
Like, bro.
I know.
You know what? The cool thing is I'm okay with it because I don't practice it. And it's definitely, there's so many cool moves, and I prefer magic, but there's so many cool things within cardistry or flourishing, whatever you want to call it, that I literally practice every single night, whether it's a one-handed fan, whether it's anaconda, whether it, just different things like that, chalier cut, like stuff like that I feel is involved in magic. And if you don't do it, you're just not completing your magic. I think it totally adds to your magic.
I've had some people I've talked to before compare it to like scales in music. That let's say if you want to develop, the strength for a pinky count, it helps to be able to do some moves that exercise your pinky per se.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's so true. I think the people that are just like, no, cardistry is not for me. No, magic is not for me. I think certain types of magic moves are going to help your dexterity, right? Whether it's a DPS or anything like that. Just
I practice the longitudinal swivel steel a lot just because it's a thing that works out my pinky, and it's like I don't use it for anything, but I see it like as a goal in and of itself to do it like smoothly.
That's so hard. Alex did a video on it.
It's such a specific thing to like just have that. Like just think about what you unlock when you learn a specific move. For example, the Pharaoh Shuffle. Once you know how to do a perfect Pharaoh, there's so many things that you can do in cardistry with it. You can do Friffle, you can do Bloom, you can do a Cascade, you can do a Triple Bridge, so on and so forth. And all that wouldn't be possible if you hadn't mastered something that was actually supposed to be a functional magic move for the most part.
Right.
I've been fortunate that like through the Pharaoh Shuffle, I can not only do said flourishes, but I can say stack a deck in Tamara's order using 4.5 Pharaoh Shuffles. So it's something that's useful both in like a magic and a cardistry context, which is great.
Right. Yeah, no, it's until people realize that's when they're going to be like, oh, magic is better or cardistry is better. It's like, well, bro, like you use cardistry in your magic. You just don't understand that it's called cardistry. You know, it's just, I think the growth of it, you know, I think a lot of people, even me, just getting into magic and learning a one-handed fan, which was really difficult for me at first, right, is in my head, it does. If I didn't know what cardistry was, it was magic, right? I'm just doing a move that I learned while learning magic. You know, if I'm on a magic page and someone teaches it, then it's a magic trick, I guess, you know? So I think in people's heads, they just need to realize that not everything they're doing within their routine is actually magic. You know, some of it is complementary cardistry moves.
Yeah, there seems to have been like a split in years gone by where once people were introduced to the Leonard Green, Danny Ortiz style of magic, which is very messy, very Spanish, as people say, they say that, oh, you know, you don't have to be refined. Your magic can be messy, and because of that, it's more deceptive. And that's a decision. It's a style, and it works for what it is. However, another way to think about it is that if someone is watching you perform and you want to give off the impression that you're someone who has a lot of experience with cards, that there's someone who they can watch and know they're in the presence of a professional, then handling your cards with expertise is something that adds to that effect. And it's a choice too. Do you want to seem like someone who is out of control with the deck of cards, a la Leonard Green, Daniel Ortiz, or do you want to be someone who appears to be very in control of what they're doing, but also very precise and intentional, and someone who, like, if you think about it, right? Someone makes a coin vanish, and they do this. This is a flourish.
Yeah.
Like to do like the one finger at a time, like, because what is the reason for that?
Yeah.
You know, you could just go like this here, but this particular visual sequence is functional in the sense that it's letting the person know and revealing at one instance at a time what the effect is, that the coin has vanished per se.
Right.
So a lot of these things, like, you know, waving hands, opening fingers like this, snapping your fingers, they're all flourishes that people don't realize are flourishes in the context of magic. So,
I mean, would they be considered flourishes of seeing that people were doing that way before flourishing was created? What we know of flourishing created?
Yeah, I think that probably it would be an older definition of what it was. Because if you think about like Divernon and like the wand flourish, the wand spin that he does in order to vanish, you know, one of the balls in the cups and balls, like that's a functional flourish in the sense that it's displays skill, but also is the method for stealing the ball before he makes it vanish. And then he does this, right? You know, the one finger opening thing too. So yeah, like in the Encyclopedia of Playing Card Flourishes, the author Jerry Chiskowski talks about in the beginning how you'll see a basketball player, you know, as they're laying up to do a slam dunk, they'll like, you know, dribble the ball and then like send it around the back, and then, you know, reach up and slam it in. And there's no functional reason for that, but it's a way to display mastery and expertise over their domain.
Yeah.
And there is something lovely about seeing that happening. And Harlem Globetrotters are great examples too.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Oh, and what do you teppanyaki hibachi? You know, like the chefs.
Oh, the cooking. Hibachi.
Yeah.
Dude, I love hibachi.
Oh,
dude, don't even get me started, man.
another great example of a kind of flourishing, you know, that's also functional in the context of cooking. It's a spectacle, you know. No one would ever say they were fooled by a hibachi chef or whatever they happen to be called.
Yeah,
but you know, it's a spectacle to watch.
I would honestly say I'm a magician for making all the food disappear out of the mouth that they give me.
Right.
Yeah, they do give you a lot of food at hibachi.
Man, it's crazy.
But yeah, and you're right though. It's all about that, like that flourishing and that entertainment value that it adds. So, I mean, otherwise they just literally be cooking shrimp and rice in front of you, and it wouldn't be that exciting. So,
I mean, I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, you're right. Totally right. Yeah.
Yeah, a common name that is given to spectacles such as these is eye candy. And just like with candy, if you have too much of it, it can rot your teeth. Sometimes too much of just pure eye candy can be a bit much. But, when you're in the right situation, right circumstance, there's a certain kind of aesthetic itch that like candy scratches the best. You know, my mom, she just bought a bag of peanut M&Ms and she's watching a movie and she's just snacking on them. And it's just a lovely thing to ingest moderation, and it's good at what it does.
Yeah.
And it's about to be October soon, and we have Halloween coming up, so another instance
dangerous
of
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Though who knows what Halloween will look like this year? It's going to be an interesting one, I think, for sure. So it might just be a lot of parents buying candy for their kids.
Yeah, I think Halloween's canceled this year.
Yeah,
I mean, Halloween was on the verge of being canceled for the past 10 years anyway. I think, yeah, we'll see how that goes. We should do a Halloween special. Josiah said we should do a Halloween special.
Ask Dan Sperry back.
That would be a good one.
Dude, it's funny because we're actually in the I say in the process, but Tyler and I, when we had Jackson Robinson on, we did a 6.5-hour episode, and
wow,
yeah, it was a long night.
When we talked about it, Tyler was hurting, but when we talked about it, we said we're going to do a 24-hour session. Like we'll do a 24-hour episode, and Jackson will be on it for the full 24 hours, and it will be a great show, and we're gonna try to make that happen. Maybe we'll do it for
expert mode is no bathroom breaks.
No.
Yeah, no, I don't think we could do that.
Yeah.
We just sitting there like that episode of South Park where they're playing World of Warcraft.
Oh my god.
We only did one bathroom break, so that was good.
Yeah. Right. That was that was a must-have on that one. That was I'm also very much in the habit of when I'm on the show, like I drink a lot of water. And like in a 2-hour show, I'll go through like 2 water bottles. So imagine on a 6-hour show, I must have gone through like 4 or 5 of them. And then
this is what I'm rocking right now.
Yeah.
I've got like the coffee and the water and stuff.
Yeah. So imagine, another 5 hours on top of that, you'd be ready to burst there. So it's tough, but it's definitely a worthwhile endurance event, we'll call it.
I think Ben Earl did something similar this year, right? It was like
he did a 24-hour. Yeah. He did he did a charity drive, I believe, and it was 24-hour Instagram Live, and each hour was a different guest, or each 20 to 30 minutes was a different guest.
Mm-hmm.
Which that was and that was to end his 52 days of live streams. So that was just like a pure endurance event for sure.
I'd love to do that. Tyler, I think.
Who cares about Ascension? That's the endurance thing of the year.
Yeah, man. Like it'll be dope. We got some cool things planned, and we'll let everybody know when that comes into fruition.
Yes. Hopefully we'll have some more details. We'll definitely share details as they develop. Which
maybe we'll have Kevin on. Maybe we'll have Kevin on for one of the segments, and he could just literally do cardistry and magic for 45 minutes to an hour. So people that can come on and want to like just come in and watch him do cardistry and magic. So he can, he can battle himself. He could be like, magic is better, and this is why. No, cardistry is better.
Oh my god! This would be it's like a Punch and Judy show from like the 1600s.
Oh yeah,
that'd be so good.
Oh man, it'll be an interesting event, whatever it ends up being. Whether it's whether we'll figure out some fun stuff. I know for sure. And Kevin, we would love to. We're not even done with this one, but I'm sure we'd love to have you on for that one as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So one of the questions that I kind of had as it relates to, we talked a little bit about how you got into cardistry and your competitive kind of development, we'll call it, with Huron Lau. How did you get involved with the Virts from like the jump? Like what was that really like? I'm assuming that happened while you were in Singapore, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And how'd the name come about? Like who thought of that? What did it like? How did it come about?
So this all started when I went to HMV and bought an album by Pug Jelly, this indie band that was popular in Singapore. Yeah, Pug Jelly.
So awesome.
They later changed
artwork for that.
Yeah, they later changed their name to Saw Loser, SAW.
Okay.
Probably worked better with the British accent, Soul Loser. So I bought the CD, and later when I was taking the album out to unwrap and play it in my CD player. Remember when those were a thing?
Yeah.
Um, I noticed that HMV has slipped in this little brochure or postcard kind of thing. It was like a mini postcard, and it said, "Live your dreams and make them happen." And it was an advertisement for a filmmaking competition where the grand prize was, I think, $2,500 and a Canon XL2, which was the same camera that Chris Skinner used to shoot Dan and Dave's Spring Jam video back in 2003.
Right.
So I talked to my friend Huron about it. We were both big fans of Spring Jam, and we're like, hey, we should make a flourishing video, kind of walking people through the different genres of flourishes, and then we'll screen it at the filmmaking contest, and we're gonna win. That was our goal, to make this little documentary of sorts showcasing cardistry to a wider audience. And again, this was before YouTube, so like that's about as many eyes as we thought we could get this to have. So we sat down and we drafted out like a list of moves that we could do, and we were like, man, there's so many moves that would be cool to have in this video, but we can't do them. But we can reach out to a couple of our friends who can do those moves and include them in this project. So at the time, Huron and I invited our friends Elijah and Sylvester to be a part of this video as well. So we spent the next couple weeks, finding places with decent enough lighting and putting up like a shitty white background that kept falling down all the time. And we just shot everything that we knew. So every single flourish that we knew, we shot it, and eventually compiled and edited it together in like Sony Vegas. Well, this was back before it was Sony. It was Sonic Foundry's Vegas editor.
Oh, wow.
And a day before the deadline of when the video was due to be, sent in, we still hadn't have a name for this. So I talked to Huron over the phone, and he's like, "What if you called it Virtuoso?" And I'm like, does that mean anything? Is it just a random word? He's like, no, look it up in the dictionary. So I did, and there was like, someone who's exceptionally talented at music as an example of what a virtuoso is. So I was like, okay, I don't have anything better. So we titled the video Virtuoso, made it, like exported it to a DVD, sent it in, and then nothing. They never screened it at the fest. I don't think it even got enough accolade to be considered to be screened at the fest.
Oh, wow.
Like we went there, during the screen date, hoping that our video would be screened, and afterwards we would be awarded and get our prize and everything. But we had no awareness at the time that what we turned in was worse than your average student short film, like very janky, like poorly edited. Lighting was awful. Just a completely nonsensical, dissonant soundtrack and whatnot. Like that's a video that we've never posted online because it's so embarrassing. But that's how we
dude, let's post it. Let's watch it. We'll have a watch party.
So, if I had like a red laser, I would like point it here, so it would like be shining on my forehead, and I'll be like, I don't.
That's so funny. I love watching like stuff like that.
I know, like one of my friends. So this is a bit of an aside. We'll get back to the Virtuoso thing in a second. Okay. So a couple of years ago, I was part of this thing called Cardistry Vacation, where a bunch of our friends, we just decided to hang out in Barcelona and jam the whole time. And one evening, we were like, hey, we should show all of our first videos to each other. Stuff that like had never been posted online before. So we sat down and we like just played everyone's first videos, and it was so funny to see everyone's origins and what they looked like before they had any sense of self-awareness and fashion sense. And one of my friends, Matthew Baudouin, turns out that when he posted his first video, he had like this huge afro, which is really funny to see. But anyway, the video tanked. Virtuoso was no good, but we had a lot of fun hanging out with each other and working on stuff that we decided, hey, we'll maybe keep doing this. So the name stuck, and we continued to hang out. That's cool. Over the years, certain members joined, certain members left. Darren joined the group. shortly after, and that was a major acquisition because he's so talented and a fantastic editor as well. And in 2007, we had been working on a DVD of moves that we shot the performance footage for and wanted to teach. And when we look back at the footage, we were like, man, we can't make this a DVD. It's not that good, but we can take the performance footage and maybe compile into like, performance video. So that led to the video called Virtuoso Reintroduction, where in 2007, we posted it to 311 and a couple other places, and it got a lot of hype because it was, I think, the first major like team in cardistry that wasn't like born with each other, because the Bucks, like, they've been around each other their whole lives. But as the Virts, we were this kind of exciting new boy band in cardistry before it was even called cardistry. So, oh wait, no, I think it was. So that was another instance of progress with Virtuoso. And then a couple of years passed. I was in college. Darren and Huron had been still doing stuff with Virtuoso while I was away. So they released a video called Style, which was a submission for a 311 Saturday night contest, I believe. And they also released Gambit, which was an attempt to get hired by Marvel to become stunt hands for the Gambit movie that never happened. Awesome video, by the way. And then I came back from college in around 2011. I studied filmmaking, and I got burned out on it. So I was in Singapore, just sticking to what I knew, magic and cardistry. And that was around the time where they had been working on and finishing the launch edition Virtuoso deck, the red and black one.
Yeah.
And so that put us into business. That was the first thing we actually monetized with our brand. And that started to turn into a legitimate thing. Like, we actually registered as a company, and everyone got salaries throughout the years, and we released 5 decks during my stint in Singapore with the Virts. And that was great. We got to say we were professional cardists and release videos that ended up going viral, like Airtime and Liquid Paper and so on. I think Test Room also got some attention from the news, some news channels and Boing Boing and whatnot. So yeah, remember that was the thing.
That's awesome. Hold on a sec. Hold on. All this is great, but how can we see the original video, dude?
Yeah. It's got to be somewhere. It's got to be somewhere.
We got to post it somewhere so we can watch it.
I have it here.
Oh God!
How long is it?
I'm not going to show the whole thing, but I wanted to highlight a particular part of the intro that's especially awful.
Yeah, Anthony wrote Visual Madness.
Visual Madness is right. Oh,
I like your persistence, though, dude. The fact that you did this video that didn't even get shown, and then you literally took up video is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You followed the dream, man.
That's exactly what it said on that postcard.
Exactly.
So you may not have won the prize that day, but you got a very valuable life lesson out of it. So that's a win, kind of.
Lost the battle but won the war.
There you go. I feel like this is like a Disney movie in the making here. Like, you didn't get the money, but you got
don't tell Disney just don't show Disney your screenplay yet.
Yeah. Oh my god.
They'll probably do some live action remake that's not as good.
Yeah, they'll turn you into I don't know, some other nationality, and they'll totally change it on you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in Doctor Strange, where the what is Tilda Swinton's character called? Like the wise one or something? It was originally supposed to be Asian, but now she's Tilda Swinton.
That's Alex was actually talking about it last week on the show, and he said,
Andrew?
Yeah. And he said that he pitched something to them, and they totally ran with it and did it themselves. And it was him and a good friend of his who was an Indian guy, and they literally changed it, and they made for the show, they made the Indian guy a Korean guy. So they literally was like,
But like this is Disney's MO. Like if you didn't know, I feel like our show is starting to turn on like the hate Disney show. But like if you did not know that Disney goes about stealing stories and turning them into movies and claiming they're their own, like I don't know where you've been living. Like
I mean, they own Star Wars now, and
yeah, that's true.
You know, Marvel too.
Yeah, they're pretty much like a media conglomerate at this point. Yeah. First off, this music is amazing. I would have given you the win.
So this is I'm going to show two things, which are the intro and also the dictionary scene. So
all right,
this is the intro of the video. We're at some cafe. It's black and white. You have a person doing a flourish, and then bam, color in their name. The camera keeps going on. You see the next person doing some nonsense with their hands. Well, not nonsense. This is Elijah.
Bam, where's the bam?
Bam, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
That's his last name.
The Jerry's.
That's an actual authentic deck of Jerry's. Yeah. I got them from my friend Ethan. And then here's me. I think I'm doing Molecule 2. Mid flip, mid TG. That's me.
How come yours looked less like cooler than theirs?
That's a good question because I edited this. So, right. So
that's very modest. Very modest of you, Kev.
It turns out that the dictionary scene is right after this, right?
Okay.
So after I'm introduced in the video, I'll even move this out of the way. You have this pulsating heartbeat thing going on.
Oh god.
The dictionary opens up.
Dude, that's magic right there. That's not Cardistry.
And it zooms in on the dictionary page to the word virtuoso.
Oh, brilliant.
It says a person's exceptionally skillful at something, especially, and the video's kind of washed out right now because of the exposure. But it says over here, especially good at doing something, especially card manipulation. This is totally edited in. It's not exact. That's definitely not what was in the original dictionary definition. But we just kind of photoshopped it in and made it seem like it was destined
to be that.
So
good. So how, I'm going to ask again. How can we see this video?
You can't.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. Though that was amazing.
Epic.
I love that intro.
Yeah,
so good.
Right.
I'd love to see that thing. That's the cool thing. Like my girlfriend and I just started watching Buffy again. Like from episode 1, and oh my god, watching that cracks me up. It's just
the beginning is so like
the special effects are very special. Let's just say that. So
yeah, I think we discussed this in the pre-show talk about the nostalgia critic, right? And like
yeah.
Kazam and other movies that you remember from your childhood.
Yeah,
it's funny because I was actually talking to someone the other day about music. And how they recently released a study saying that basically your peak age of music is like high school to college years, so 15 to 21. And subconsciously, you will forever try to find music that gives you the same nostalgic feeling as the music of that era. And that's why a lot of people end up kind of complaining about, oh, like music is so different than what it was back in the day because it doesn't hit the same. And even though, generationally, people enjoy all the new stuff. As you get older, you like it less because you're still trying to find the stuff that gives you the same feeling that it did back in the day.
Yeah, most of the stuff from now is taken from those old school groups anyway, because they know that people like relate to that, and especially the big popular songs they kind of pull stuff from,
Yeah.
I mean Kanye West does a lot of sampling. Like in Famous, there's a part where he samples Bum Bum.
Yeah.
Bum 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 dee dum bum.
Yeah.
It's really pleasing to hear because it's something from the yesteryear of music that kind of scratches that kind of pop itch in your ear.
Yeah.
And
the old Kanye.
I like the new Kanye.
Oh gosh.
I'm just
we won't get into the new Kanye, that's for sure.
I like
make
Ye,
this a positive episode.
I'm a big fan of mashup artists and mashup music, and there's a couple of really insane, like aside from Girl Talk, there's also like Super Smash Brothers, E603, Milkman, all these people making like songs where it switches to a different genre every single like couple of seconds, and
fusion.
Your brain just starts to go like electro crazy from hearing all of the different recognizable things that you never thought anyone would like put together.
Yeah.
And then there's the not converse of that, but there's something similar but done for a comedic effect, which is sound clowning. So if you're familiar with the website SoundCloud, a lot of people will upload horrible mashups of songs that have no right being in the same playhead, and it's so funny listening to them because there's kind of a gut punch effect of hearing, Evanescence's "Wake Me Up," right?
Yeah.
With the "Two Girls, One Cup" song in the background. So
Two Girls, One Cup song. There's a song in the background.
Yeah, the piano.
I haven't seen the video. I refuse to watch it, but I didn't.
Oh.
There's like a song. I think it's great that you knew there was a song in the background. the fact that you knew that.
That's why I watched Two Girls, One Cup for. It's for the music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a film student, especially one who kind of like grew up in Singapore where so much stuff is banned, a lot of my upbringing in film was downloading pirated movies after going through IMDb forums and people saying like, this movie sucked, check out these movies. And I just had amassed like a big list of films, and they would get like darker and more violent and disturbing. So by the time I watched Two Girls, One Cup, I was just completely like burnt out on, disturbing material. So I was like, okay. I showed it to my roommate. He's like, dude, I was eating a burrito.
Oh god.
Oh god. There's just some stuff I won't even look at, and that's like one of them.
Probably for the best. I think.
Yeah,
as I've gotten older, I've become a little bit more empathetic and sensitive over time. So
and probably mature.
No, never.
Yeah, that's when you see something like that and it doesn't phase you, you need to take a step back and kind of reevaluate a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm bad at watching like all the crime shows, like the true live crime shows, where it's like they show stuff. That stuff fascinates me.
I like that. Yeah.
Like crime scene photos. Oh man, I love stuff like that. Cause I'm obviously a photographer, so I'm always like, how would I take that shot? Or, it's just it's crazy.
Dexter and like his obsession with like blood spatter patterns.
Yeah, dude. I would love to just follow him around and take pictures of all the stupid stuff he sees. But it's funny because if anything ever happened to any of my friends or like my girlfriend or anything happened to me and they came in this house and looked at our TV and saw what we watched, they'd be like, one of these two did it. Like they would automatically assume that we're guilty. The stuff that we watch is so crazy.
Oh my god.
Fontaine, Babylon, UV light, come in. You did it.
Speaking of it, I have it right here. Here it is.
Shit. Hell yeah.
Which that is like the world's tiniest flashlight too.
No, it isn't. This one is. This one's smaller.
Oh, jeez.
I think maybe the world's tiniest flashlight is the gimmick that Tobias Dostal uses for his phone vanish routine.
I thought you were gonna say for his silhouette routine, but
that silhouette trick is so good.
Oh my god!
You showed it to us at Magic Live.
You know what though? You need to be good at cardistry to be able to pull it off.
Yeah, you need some like definite like control. That's not like a beginner's gimmick.
Oh no! Yeah.
That was yeah.
What was the cell phone one called again?
That's are you talking about? Oh well,
optics. It's called optics.
Yeah, optics. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Great.
He really does have some great stuff. Yeah. But I think so. We actually did have some good questions that came in, and I think.
Oh.
But before we dive into the questions, let's do the deck sniff.
Oh yeah, because we're now in 10 minutes in. We might as well
right.
sniff a deck.
Yeah, let's do some sniffing.
So to give some context, just so that anyone who's watching understands why we do these, episode 10 was with Stu McCann, who some may know in the community as Courier Stu. Stu is known for sniffing decks of cards, which he originally got from Rise Magic, who also is very well known for their ASMR deck sniffing.
I'm gonna do a deck sniff. Keep talking. I'm gonna go grab one.
Yeah.
I feel like he's
I'm actually gonna go grab a deck too. So
all right.
so
I'll keep telling you the audience here what's going on. So the deck sniff basically is a shout out to Stu, where we will have Kevin open a new deck of cards, open it, unseal, open, and then sniff and kind of give us his impression of the deck. So anyone who has not seen this before, this is why we do the deck sniff. Caitlin, I see your question in there. Stu is actually at work and not able to make it in today. So he will have to catch this on the replay. But while we're waiting for Kevin to come, oh my gosh, that's going to be an interesting deck sniff. But you don't need to show off, Steve. But that being said, for anyone who hasn't so far, make sure to go like the video, because I know Matt is watching and he has not watched the video yet. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. What if it smells terrible?
Who cares? Look what it looks like. Who cares what it smells like? Look at it.
I mean, it's a deck sniff. Why are you gonna? You don't need to show off, Steve. It's all right. You're wasting an unboxing opportunity.
Whatever.
See,
it's totally worth it. This is what I'm gonna deck sniff this bad boy, Kev. What are you gonna deck sniff?
Oh, nice. Yeah. Very nice. Whoa.
It's
nice.
It's first 2.
Very nice.
Nice.
1.5.
What are you gonna deck sniff there, buddy?
I don't have
Mr. Tyler.
I only
Come on,
have.
bro. I got a Damask. He's got a V2 first. You gotta open something up, bro.
Hold on.
Make it big or go home.
I'm gonna deck sniff something that's already open because it just was freshly opened. But the nice one about this is it's an unreleased deck.
Stupid. You're so stupid.
I'll switch it up and I'll go with the brown one.
How about I'm gonna open? I'll sniff this one.
There you go.
All right. No,
so Kevin, let's see it here. I want to see the and so I guess one of the questions to lead up to this too is: do you regularly sniff cards when you open them, or is this like a uncommon occurrence for you?
I don't sniff cards
when
I open them, but sometimes I'll get a whiff when they're being rippled. So it's not like I'll actively go there and try to snort on any pheromones that are coming out.
All right.
But sometimes if the smell is strong enough, then I'll catch a whiff of it.
Well, if you use any of the decks printed in Taiwan, the smell is usually pretty pungent on those.
All right. So,
Kevin is normal. Actually, Kevin's not normal because most people do sniff the deck. So I would say he's abnormal for not sniffing.
Yes, definitely the outlier there.
Oh,
pungent, right?
No, that's a USPCC deck. It's not that pungent.
Yeah.
But they're still not like great smelling.
It does smell a bit like Cartamundi. I know it isn't, but
interesting.
I hope yours smells like feet, Steve.
I think I'm getting a strong whiff of like the pasteboard within these. Very cool too that these have like that foil on them.
I honestly, that's my favorite of the first decks. I absolutely love the black back design with the little foil edging there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. Chris was really generous and gave me a couple of these when I saw him. Oh, and they're in stack.
There you go.
Yeah. This is actually red stock.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh yeah, this is a red stock. I don't think this one's gonna fan. I don't think this one's gonna fan that way, but
yeah, that's I mean,
it smells pretty good though.
That fanning element on that just looks beautiful. It works so well on the V2.
Yeah, it didn't work on the V1 to be honest.
And it didn't work on the V3 either because of the registration.
V3, that's what I meant. That's what I meant, V3.
It was because of the registration, though. The registration was such trash on the V3, it was a shame.
Yeah, these are very
But-
pretty cards.
Yeah.
Let's see if
I
this
have
one
to say,
fans.
for the simplicity of what Chris makes, they look great. So
Yeah. Here's a fan.
And the inside too. Like you have
Definitely
all
doesn't
that foil in
fan.
the box.
you know, it looks so good.
Great
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm a huge fan of that version. That was definitely for me the best one that he did so far.
Yeah.
I love that
Yeah.
deck.
Which who knows what we'll have to see what the V4s look like.
Yeah, they're gonna be black and red, I assume.
Yeah, because it was the white one at first, and this one, and then you had like the plant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
and then he's been like all his new merch is all black and red.
Yeah.
So I assume that's what color he's gonna go with.
Yeah, when I went to visit him, he was wearing like this NASA hoodie.
Was it the NASA hoodie or the NASA inspired hoodie?
I think it was the NASA hoodie.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
because he has his new merch is basically the NASA thing. It looks
Right.
exactly like the NASA one.
There's a musical artist called NASA. It stands for North America, South America.
Oh, nice. Are they like a world music or?
His music is inspired by different cultural elements from either.
Nice.
And he does a lot of collabs. So there's like David Byrne is on there, Santa
nice.
Gold is on there, Charlie Tuna from
Dude, Charlie
Classic
Tuna? Yeah. I know
he's
Charlie
on there as
Tuna.
well. And yeah,
He's got one of the
used-
best voices in hip hop for sure.
Oh, so good.
Dude. Yeah. Have you heard of any of his solo stuff yet?
Yeah. Like,
So
was
good.
it Fish Out of Water?
Fish Out of Water, yeah. That's so good.
Yeah, Zach Mueller used one of his songs for an early Cardistry video that he did with Tobias Levin and Chase Duncan.
Oh, nice.
Crumble Up Your Crew. That's the name of the video.
Nice.
That's so good. Yeah, his voice. I would love. It's funny because a good friend of mine is really good friends with him, and I'm like, I should get him to record my voice message when people call me. It's his voice. That'd be so dope, right?
Oh yeah, he's got like a really like deep
His
smooth
voice is so good.
And his
For those of
flow
you
is
who don't,
fantastic, too.
yeah, for those of you who don't know who Jurassic 5 is, he's like the cool voice on old Jurassic 5.
Yeah.
But he was also in Ozo Motley, if anybody knows who Ozo Motley is. But his name's Charlie Tuna, and you got to listen to it. Amazing voice. Since you have your cards out, I know we're going to get into some questions. Can you maybe show us a few things?
So actually, and this raises a question that just came in, which I think is perfect for what Steve's asking here. Is
Nice.
Dawn asked what I can actually even pull it up. Dawn asked what your favorite flourish was,
Oh, cool.
and
So,
maybe not even your favorite, but your go-to.
Right. So there's two answers to this. My fault. But one answer is like, which flourish do I like the best because of how it's inspired my approach philosophically? And the other answer is, what's my favorite flourish to show people who I'm showing flourishes to for the first time? Okay. So the first answer would be Dave Buck's Flirt, this move. It's super
slow.
quick.
It's hard to see as you're doing it because of the camera.
Hold on,
Yeah.
what I'm gonna do? Hold on 1 second.
I'll blow him up.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna go there, and then I'm gonna go there.
Cool. So slow, it's this, and then fast, it's that. It's
Okay.
probably too fast for the camera.
That,
It
I
is
mean,
pretty fast for the
that's
camera.
I mean, that's got to be fast in general. Though. That's sick.
So a few things that I like about Flirt is that it perfectly demonstrates my approach to efficiency in cardistry. I don't tend to like stuff where people's arms and elbows are moving around a lot because I feel that if you are moving more than the cards are, it's not very efficient handling.
I like that, Kevin. Kevin, so spot on, man.
Like if you see a person like making a fool out of themselves while they're doing a move, it's at a cost to their performance. I feel.
Agreed,
I like it
100%.
when the fingers move a little bit, but what's happening with the deck is a lot. So that's
those nice flowy moves.
Yeah, like even if you think about like once you're set up for a cascade and you don't do anything but gravity just helps you do the move. Like you're not doing anything.
So cool. It looks so good with those arrows.
It really
Thank
does.
you. Yeah,
it looks
there's so
good.
much. There's so much efficiency when you're working with a move where your fingers only do so much, but the cards move a lot. So to slow this down, once you get the card out here and before it's out, it's being pulled back in rapid succession. So.
Nice. Oh, so you're moving your thumb out of the way?
Yeah. So the thumb goes out and comes back in.
Wait, how does it go back? Oh, you turn it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it
so
hits
you're
the
using your
thumb.
thumb to adjust it and turn it the other way.
Yeah.
But it's so like
that
slick,
makes
you
sense.
you don't even really notice. That's so good looking.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It looks awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
Like one of the things I like the most about Flirt is that it's over before it begins. It feels like when you do it, you get the kind of sense of what just happened, and
Yeah.
it brings about one of the nice advantages about cardistry, which is that it bears repeating. If you do a magic trick and someone asks you to see it again, you normally want to kind of steer the conversation away from that. But for cardistry, you can do it again for the most part, and it gets better upon each viewing, and there's no secret lost in the midst of it. So that's my favorite move to. That's philosophically my favorite move.
That's cool.
The move I tend to show lay people the most when I'm explaining what cardistry is Bloom by Zach Mueller. Now, this is what he would call the basic Bloom because the official version is supposed to involve an anti-pharaoh. So think of it what you will. But this might not turn out as well as I want it to. But once you get an even opening that's like approaching 180 degrees, then you get a very nice, pretty looking set of double fans. And then this closer.
That's so good.
Another example of efficiency in cardistry, where like you're actually appearing to be doing nothing, but the cards seem to move on their own.
Yeah.
Because like with Dan and Dave called their first video "Pasteboard Animations," and if you think about your fingers are kind of like the strings in puppetry as they're bringing a deck of cards to life. It's very awesome sometimes when you have moves where it seems like the cards are moving by themselves.
Right.
So another example of that is one of my other favorite flourishes to do with a deck. I don't know if I can do it with these cards because they're a bit powdered, but it's the Riffle Fan by Dimitri Arleri.
I love the Riffle Fan.
A little bit out of frame, but so
good.
Yeah, not much apparent motion, but a lot of efficiency in that move as well.
Yeah, it really seems like the cards themselves are bringing themselves out, and like you're really just doing nothing. Like you're holding your hand; it almost looks stationary, which I always love about the Riffle.
Yeah.
Right, let's switch this back up here, and I love this new setup here.
I know it's so good, right? It's actually efficient cardistry. It's like flowing. Where before it was like, I'm Kevin. I am so with you. I cannot stand watching. And this has nothing, like I'm not picking on anybody here, but I can't stand watching cardistry where all this like crazy stuff is and people are like doing all that and then they're doing all this stuff that they have to like and have 37 different things and it takes them 20 minutes to get into,
Right. Yeah, I think the same can go for certain magic performances. Like, it is kind of cringy sometimes to see a person who's doing a manipulation act and they're dancing around on stage when they obviously can't dance.
Yeah.
So that's why it was probably very, very nice to see artists like Yuho Jin when he was doing his, card manipulation act, and we would be very framed and focused in this particular area when he was doing his moves. Same thing with Jan Frisch, right? Because with Jan Frisch, you just have that frame of like the table and like the mug and the three balls and so on.
Yeah. So. That was absolutely beautiful, and it's funny because a bunch of people in the chat were just like, "Oh, he makes it look so easy."
Yeah, and that's what I love about cardistry is that the small flowy movements. That for me, with anything, the basics is where it's at. That's where the powerful stuff comes from. Is everything grows from the basics, and I think just in anything, the basics is where it is. Can you give us a little?
In 2008, I came up with this move called backdrop, which is this thing here. It's a
that's your move.
Yeah,
dude, everybody does that.
I know.
that's literally in everybody's routines. Everything.
That's crazy.
That is pretty cool.
So I was quite proud that it went on to have that effect on the community, where it kind of became this staple in everyone's cardistry vocabulary. That's it's not a big move, but it's
dude, it really is like it's such an integral move. It seems like in everyone's like kind of performances that they put everything together. Like it's always somewhere in there, which is so cool.
And
Yeah.
it's funny because that's the move I literally have been practicing probably for the past week. It's cool.
See,
It's
Anthony
cool.
is asking about Buzzsaw by Brendan Connor. So if you don't know, and I don't know if the frame rate's going to be able to capture this, but there's this flowy type move by my friend Brendan.
Oh, cool.
It's similar
Nice.
to Under Pressure, but done a little bit larger and with the lapel spread. So I don't think the frame rate's doing this justice, but
no, it's not.
That's another flowy move that's fun to do.
No, that's really cool too. Like you said, much wider than the usual Under Pressure, which is still a very cool move, but also like close and compact. That has that like spread to it, which is cool.
Yeah,
it looks really cool. So
can you give us a little magic trick for the magicians out there in the chat? We got someone asking. Can you show us a trick?
I'll switch it up again.
I'll switch over to a pack of Jerry since it has pips.
I'm also going to try something else and see if this works. No, it didn't.
Tyler's playing.
So let's say we use this here. So we got the 4 clubs.
4 of clubs.
So I'll try and make a card rise out of the deck. And it is not the 4 clubs. It's 9 of diamonds. We'll watch carefully. And there it is.
That was sick.
Nice.
So that's the breathalyzer change by one of my friends who I can't remember his name. But it's a fun quickie I like to do.
That's cool.
For people.
Yeah. Now, how often do you find yourself putting in the same amount of time for Magic to Cardistry, or is it pretty much Cardistry now, or what do you find yourself doing more of?
So, Steve, I'm not in any way as experienced in martial arts as you are. I took a little bit of Taekwondo when I was young, and a lot of Taekwondo for me was doing these muscle memory sequences. Going through
horse stance and all that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I feel that for cardistry, a lot of my practice goes into maintaining and upkeeping that muscle memory of being able to stretch into these positions, grip cards in certain ways, and go through a flourish smoothly, and making sure I hit all the points along the way without much hesitation.
Right.
So for me, cardistry is like what I remember about martial arts. Whereas for magic for me feels a lot like joke telling, because the first thing you remember is the punchline, and in magic it's the effect, like the surprising thing that happens, and then you have to think about the setup. When in comedy you have the build towards the punchline before you whip the tablecloth out of the way, and for magic you have to think of sometimes literally the setup, which cards go in which order for you to do your routine and whatnot. So I find that for the most part, I don't have to practice as much muscle memory with cards for magic, as much as I have to do remember it, like remembering a joke, that this happens and this happens, and then because of that this will happen. But for cardistry, it's very, very much muscle memory. So to answer your question, I practice cardistry a lot just to upkeep my skill. And for magic, sometimes I'll just fall back on the oldies, ambitious card, biddle trick, so on. But when I learn a new trick that intrigues me, it's often the secret of it that I try and run through a bunch of times so that I can get it ingrained in my memory when I want to perform it for people. And yeah, there's a lot of fun in magic sometimes when you're really in sync with the audience, and you can kind of have this playful attitude with them where they trust that you know what you're doing and they invest in you as a character. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, do you find yourself, or actually, I have a better question. What, in cardistry and in magic, what was the 2 moves that was the most difficult for you to learn?
Ooh.
Learn from, beginning to getting it where you felt comfortable that you can perform it in front of people and be happy with how it looked.
I think for magic, something that I'm still trying to get comfortable with is palming basically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I like, have a gesture and be able to execute, a one-hand top palm per se,
Right.
um, I keep feeling that I'm flashing all the time. So I have to try and, be natural with it and do the proper transfers and whatever. I'm much more comfortable copying a card than I am palming one.
Right.
So it's something that like it's just so psychologically guilt-ridden for me to be able to palm a card. So I wouldn't say I'm like proficient with it yet, but I'm still constantly trying to be better at adjusting my attitude to palming.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
in cardistry, there's a couple that come to mind. One of them is this looping cut sequence called piano cuts, where it's like a Charlier cut, except you're doing this back and forth.
So cool.
So the amount of pinky control in this is one of the things to get used to, because if you don't have the pinky strength to hold this packet, then the whole thing doesn't work. And that's why I can't do it with my right hand yet, even though I wish I could. So what I'll often do is that I will have my right hand do L cuts while my left hand is doing the piano cuts. So you kind of get this sequence of cards just going all over the place.
Nice.
Another difficult. Oh,
it's funny. Like, I was just gonna say, like you were talking about palming. I have that same problem, and I think for me, it's because of rock climbing. It's because my hands are just so screwed up from climbing that I feel like there's definitely bigger gaps in that area. You know, when I am palming. So it's so funny.
I got.
I have the same. It's like, I have the same thing, and you don't want to close it like that because then it just looks weird. So you want to, try to keep it as kind of chill as possible. But I have literally the same problem, like right there. It's literally, I can't even close it because my fingers are so jacked.
I know, like those windows are going to be the death of me. Another cardistry move that took me a while before I realized the secret to it is Bad Habit by Brian Tudor. So the move looks like this. You extend a couple times, and then this packet is sent down below. So that part there, that's one of the moments in Bad Habit. And so when I was starting out, I didn't know how to stretch my finger enough to place that down there. And it wasn't until I realized that you had to use the left ring finger to lever this up, so you have all this space to do it, that I finally was able to do the move. And so it wasn't so much that it took a long time to learn how to do it, but it took a long time to learn the secret that allowed me to be able to do it.
Yeah, and that's a cool. We were actually talking about that recently. Was it with Alex? Yeah, I think it was with Alex. We were talking about there's 10 different people will do tutorials on the riffle fan, right?
Yeah.
But what it comes down, and I watched Dimitri's riffle fan video, and the guy's obviously the creator, and he does it flawlessly and easily. But when I watched him, it was really difficult for me to do, And then I watched Chandler Henry's. I've watched a couple other ones of people doing it, and obviously they were just trash. But I watched Chandler's, and watching his video, just basically he talked about his problem that he had with doing it and what he did to fix it. And that allowed me to learn a little bit more and figure out where I needed to put my hands to basically make it happen. It's kind of the same idea as figuring out which works for you to make it happen. It's like, I'm sure Caitlin's in the room. She has to do that all the time, is figure out how to manipulate her hand and the cards to make it, make the move
work for her
happen. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys were saying?
I was just gonna say, that is the thing though. Everyone really hands are hands, but at the same time, they're really not. Like, there are those distinct differences between everyone who does it, unless someone's sitting there being like, oh, well, my middle finger is, 3.2 inches and this and that, and you have all the same dynamic and specifics of their hand. It's always going to work differently, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So cool. Like, just seeing those super cool moves. And it's funny because normally when I see a video now, I don't see any of those cool moves, that the basics and all the flowy stuff. Nowadays, it's all that crazy stuff that people are doing. And
yeah, there's a lot of developments in the area of packet cutting that tends to be a little bit more niche, and something that a lot of people who do packet cutting are more leaning towards enjoying. but they might not be as attractive or palatable for people who just aren't into it. So,
yeah. Now, where do you recommend people go who are interested in those basics and those small movements that you like?
oh, wow, that's a good question. I don't know, but I think that if you follow Best Cardists Alive on Instagram, they tend to post stuff that's a little bit more towards the commercial side, or at least something that warrants being impressive enough to a larger audience to, not just be the same slurry of two-handed cuts that people see all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Like, for example, right, there is a move that looks like this. I'm doing it terribly. Oh, as you can see. So I'm just going to go through the steps.
It's good. It's good to see you say I'm doing it terribly and then drop a card, because it just shows that you're a freaking human.
So there's a move where that happens. And then there's a move of mine where it kind of almost looks like the same thing, because it's using a lot of the same mechanics, but it's like a different thing altogether.
Right.
So, a lot of people who kind of look at it from the outside, they aren't able to tell the difference. And so it seems like it's the same thing, which is why a lot of my repertoire, or the moves that I would select to show lay people in Singapore when I used to work there, would cover a lot of different genres. And I tried to make it so that they were as commercial as possible.
Right.
So there's this move by my friend Zui called, I forget what it's called, but it's like this here. If you watch the middle card, you'll see that it can like spin.
That's cool.
Seemingly by itself.
That's really cool.
And that's an example of like a move with a secret, right? Where
Right.
There's a certain genre of cardistry where there's an aspect of it that's kind of clandestine or hidden, and then you have this cool effect that happens. So another funny little flourish that I like to do for lay people is Pringle by Jedrick. And it's this thing that looks like a little bird with flapping wings.
That's so good looking.
And if you pull off one of the wings, it actually grows back.
Nice.
Oh, dropped it. But yeah.
Yes, he dropped it.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
He's human.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think that's what it's all about. Like, everyone drops them to get there.
Yeah, I'm so sick of just seeing like the perfect. I want to see videos of progression from really good people starting, learning a move or creating a move and just dropping shit all over the place and just really, getting to like through that frustration part of magic, cardistry, whatever.
Two examples come to mind. One of them is Jaspis, who put out a video of him learning this popular move Pandora in a day. And so he went from not being able to do it at all, watching the tutorial and slowly like dropping cards and figuring it out and getting used to the grips and transitions and finally being able to do it like semi-decently. And another example is Andre Jake on the Steve Harvey show. So he comes in on there, he does a bunch of flourishes, and when he gets to the long distance spinner part, he drops a couple cards, but he doesn't give a shit at all. He just keeps going. And the audience seeing that, this is something where just that his catches outnumber the amount of drops that he's done, they start cheering actually. Yeah. And it's really lovely to see, because you're like, if this pro, Andre, can drop cards and not care about it, why should I care?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Andre has just a way about him that everything looks cool anyway. So even dropping cards looks cool when he does it.
That raises a good.
Yeah, he even had an item in Genesis 2, I think, called Card and Fan Recovery, where if you drop the card, I can't do this, but if you drop the card on the floor, what he would do is he would do a fan, snap, and the card would spin back and then insert itself inside of the fan.
That's sick.
So it's like how magicians have outs like Invisible Deck or Colossal Killer in case you miss a card. So Andre has like these, cool lines and moves to get out of dropping cards and make it seem like it's all part of the act. Because he's a professional.
He's so good. He's like a genius, that guy.
Yeah, you guys should have him on here if he's privy to talking about stuff aside from money for once.
Yeah, I stopped following him. Honestly, the guy's brilliant. He's a genius. But I just stopped following him because I didn't have the money that has anything to do with his page. I can't invest in the stuff he's talking about, so it doesn't matter. But it'd be cool to have him on. I think it'd be fun to pick. I mean, he's done so much, for all movies. He's kind of worked with, and probably some amazing stories.
I just want to give a quick thank you to Anthony Hawk in the comments. He says he picked up 6 packs of Aerodynamics when they came out.
Nice.
And yeah, like I really appreciate the support, man. It means a lot. Like
Right on.
There's always this nervousness that comes from launching new stuff where you're like, will people actually care at all, or anyone's gonna get these?
How's that flourish for you? Ready?
Yeah, it's like a mini firefly.
And so, I actually had 2 questions there, but one of them that kind of ties in with the aerodynamics as well is, obviously, like you said, initially the deck sold out in under a week, which I think is phenomenal. And, being a creator, I think you probably always have that nervousness initially of what the reaction is going to be, especially because you took this step out from an established kind of creative team to being out on your own. What really was your motivation there to branch out on your own?
Logistics for the most part. I don't have a Singapore citizenship, and you need one to be able to work in Singapore. So since I'm an American citizen, I was born in Hartford, I had to move back here. And so, working with the Virts is a very intimate experience. You have to kind of be at the meetings and meet up a lot in person and be in the country at least to be able to work with them. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to work with them anymore. There's no bad blood. We're still great friends. I just saw them in February when I came to Singapore for my little break from the States for a bit. I was put in this situation where I'm like, now that, what is Kevin without the Virts, right?
Yeah.
For a long part, that was my identity, that Kevin is a member of the Virts, one of the co-founders. It was even in your description of me today, Kevin, co-founded, was a former member of the Virts and so on. So what exists outside of that? What is my kind of Justin Timberlake solo career going to be? And so I thought about, it was actually both Yang Chan and Zach Mueller who got me back on the path of working on aerodynamics again. Because I first demoed aerodynamics in CardistryCon in Berlin in 2016. And then after that, I started dating this girl, so I kind of didn't really work on it after that because I got caught up with that.
Yeah.
Do we know this girl? Do we know her?
Yeah, you do. It's Caroline Raven. So
he's like, it's Caroline Raven.
So Yang Chan posted a video of him using the aerodynamics cards, and it was the first time in a long time that I actually remembered that they were a thing, and it looked great. And so because of that, Zach Mueller reached out to me, and he was reminded of me because of Yang Chan's video. And he suggested, what if you made have you thought of starting your own cardistry brand? What if you made an Aero deck, a full deck kind of thing? And he made some suggestions there, doing something similar to the the Echoes, right? That Lotus and Hand put out. So I thought about it, did some experimenting, drew on blank cards and whatnot, and slowly began to evolve the cards from being these novelty four card packs into a full deck, and that's how it became what it is now. And another big thing was last year, out of the blue, I got this package in the mail from Expert Playing Card Company of these 2 prototype Modern Field Jerry's Nugget decks. So this was before everyone knew what was about to happen. Nice. And I handled them. I thought they were fantastic. So I talked to Bill Kalush and his team about it, and I said, I can probably get you in touch with these flourishes, these cardists up in Northern California who could do a pretty cool demo video for you. And so I got him in touch with Kyle Tran, Trevor, Aslan, Lars, I think. Nice. And they shot a pretty dope trailer cardistry video for the Kickstarter, which I think ended up raising $500,000, right?
A lot of money.
Yeah,
a lot of money.
Crazy amount. Yeah,
a lot of money.
So they were really good at doing that. So when Aerodynamics was about to come out, I sent some prototype decks to the team in NorCal and commissioned them to do a demo video for me. And they sent some really good footage, and I edited it together. And that's how we promoted this first deck in the series.
Well, dude, congratulations, man, on that launch.
And so, I picked up on that little keyword there, that first deck in the series. how are the V2 ideations coming along?
V2's done. We're
Okay.
actually working on V3 right now.
Oh,
What
wow.
the F?
So-
What the F? Like, I'm like,
That's awesome now. I mean, so
That's awesome.
is it all going to be around the same idea of the the brand being Momentum Cards? Is it going to be like a V2 of the Aerodynamics, or is it going to be like a V2 under the Momentum umbrella, but stepping away from the idea of arrows?
So this is a continuation of Aerodynamics in
Nice.
like a modified form.
Okay.
But I also do want to do other decks that aren't just arrows. The idea of Momentum is cards that are based around motion concepts and movement. So there's a whole bunch of things that are amplified when you have a lot of components moving around each other. Because I think classic card design, like you see a lot of the classic USPC decks, like bicycles, talios, circle back and fan backs, bicycle new fan backs, the league backs, and so on. They're
Right.
designed and what hoils, right? They're designed to be very intricate as a static image. But once you start to move them, with the exception of maybe the tally-ho circle backs, it just blurs into this smudge of red or blue and white.
Yeah.
Right.
So the idea here is to think about what design can be applied to a deck so that when you have many of these components in motion, it looks greater than the sum of its parts, like something that creates a pattern outside of just one element.
Right.
So you have to think of how the cards will look as a group more so than how they look individually. And I think that's probably what's led to the popularity of a lot of the decks from anyone, where they're very simple back designs. And Fontaine is the same thing, where it's a simple mirrored back, but it's simple enough so that the eyes can very easily track the card separation and the movement of each one of these cards as they're in motion. So that's what I try and think about with Momentum, with regards to at least aerodynamics.
Right.
Like how can you make these great patterns in an almost Lego kind of way, right? By using these components and arranging them in a certain way, can you make it so that it feels like there's a system that's
Right.
being put on display? So one this is not an idea for a deck, but it's something that kind of inspires me. I can get this open. So there's this really cool app that I don't know if it's still available on the App Store. It's called WikiWeb. So, oh boy. So,
If anybody has any questions for Kevin, just throw them in the chat.
okay, so let's say that you're on the app WikiWeb.
Okay.
And you look for, let's say you look up Infinite Jest. If you tap on it, it'll show you every connected subject that there is to
Oh, that's
Infinite
sick.
Jest. And you can tap on every one of these nodes, and they will then expand into all the related subjects of that node. So that what you have here is an interconnected, display of related knowledge pertaining to any subject that you're looking up in this way. So for me, that's kind of like how I try to approach card design, where you have these single elements, but once they start to expand and grow as a whole, it creates this kind of spectacle that is kind of like a constellation in nature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So cool.
No, that really is cool. And like
That's
the
what fascinates me is the fact that like people create this flipping deck of cards, literally, and like literally all of that goes into this. But when most people look at it, they're like, arrows, cool. It's like, bro, it's more than just arrows, And I think if people talk about that stuff more, not that it's your job to talk about it, right? And it's not Zach's job to talk about why just 2 Fs on the back of a deck is whatever, like it's not their job, but it's cool to put that knowledge out there so it kind of makes people look at things a little differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, going into that creative process.
I don't have to like a deck for me to appreciate the deck, you know, and understand and think that the creation of the deck was cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think just hearing that is it's really cool because it's not there for me, you know, because I'm not a cardist. So it's cool to just understand those concepts and how you even came up with it or creating the next deck.
Yeah. I can show you guys another thing that inspired me when I was, let me see, Arrow. So the box, right? One side of it is the back design, and the other side is this tessellation that has white and black arrows on it, right? On the other side.
Yeah.
So that was actually inspired by an animation that I hope I can find.
Guys, I got number 1 of 5,000. Just kidding.
The first one, the very first
I got the first one.
So on the subject of things, you know, working as a group to create these shifting patterns and stuff, this was the inspiration for the box.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, wow. And depending on that's really messing with my mind. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh, dude.
That's awesome.
No, but you know, forget it. Dude, you could do so much with that.
Yeah, and people are starting to. So we've had Yang Chan, my friend Jax, Shivraj, and Nikita, and also my friend Manuela all posting stuff within just a few weeks of their applications with this pack of cards.
Yeah, Shiv is ridiculous.
Yeah, Shiv tends to weaponize any idea you give to him.
Dude, that dude's ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, how many people get to say that they not only created a move, but a whole like genre of cardistry, right?
It's so crazy, but he's so good at it.
Yeah, and he's only like 20 or younger.
Yeah, but you know what? That doesn't even like phase me anymore because I look at like it from the climbing community. All the super strong climbers are these like, you know, 13, 14-year-old boys and girls and that are just crushing it. All the skiers, you know, I remember when I used to be when I used to ski, I'd be skiing, or you know, this is before snowboarding was a big thing, but I would ski and you'd have like 7-year-olds just flying by you. Yeah. Swear to God, like literally ski bums that live on the mountain when they're growing up, and they're 7 and they're flying by you. And that's how kids are. They pick things, even in martial arts, they pick things up so quickly. You know, it's crazy. They think differently than us adults. You know, we take all our history and our past, and that's where we make our decisions. Where like the kids are just like, man, let's do it. I don't even care. You know?
Well, also being more risk averse as you get older kind of plays into especially physical things as well. So, so one of the questions that did come up earlier, and I think, you know, just based on what we saw a little bit earlier with you saying you were working on the piano cuts, what's your like favorite fidget move? And is it really that you necessarily have a favorite fidget move, or do you just kind of like organically fidget with the things you're trying to learn?
That's a good question. I tend to cycle between a couple of things when I'm not thinking consciously of what to do. One of them is a false revolution cut. Just a simple, like, you know, pulling this up and then doing a rev cut with it. Swing cuts, obviously. And there's this combo that I used to do but do differently now called the lavender lap dance combo. And so that'll look like this.
Hold on. That's a fidget move?
It is. Like that whole sequence. Like,
first of all,
just like
how does a fidget move turn into Lego love? I don't understand. Because Lego love for me is the most difficult thing on the planet. And the fact that you do it in the fidget move, I just hate you.
I appreciate it as a compliment.
Yeah, yeah, he's like, oh yeah, this is my fidget move, and he does Lego love. Yeah, whatever, buddy.
That is sick.
But no,
cool. Well, and it's always interesting to see too, because I guess just the more time you spend with the cards, the more it does become like a fidget versus like conscious moves. Like you said, you know, those are the things you do when you're just sitting there kind of and you shut off on it, which is crazy because I can barely like do anything when I'm not trying to focus on it. But
Tyler doesn't mean snap change.
no, I do not. I've retired from the snap change game. But like seriously, if I sit here and try to do like Charlie A cuts while we're on this call, I'd like you'd see me zone and I'd just be like focusing
Shivraj had like a snap change application with Aerodynamics. He did like this and then that.
Oh, you know? Nice. That's
Dude,
cool.
See, like, yeah, that's next level. That's definitely next level there. But like, and you know what? I love the creativity of the Arrow deck in the sense of like you really have created you've created a tool that people can use in so many unique ways to, you know, create new flourishes, create new kind of moves like that. And even just the directionality of the arrow changing in itself becomes eye-catching, which is so cool.
Yeah, I think that what makes it relatable is that the arrow is such a ubiquitous icon. Like when you're driving on the road, you depend on arrows to basically make a safe journey.
Yeah, you see arrows all day long while you're driving.
No. And one of the other inspirations I had for Aerodynamics was origami instructions, because I don't know if this has it. But yeah, you can see right here, for example, that the instructions for how to fold the piece of paper in particular ways are all indicated by arrows, so that you don't need to know how to speak Japanese per se to be able to follow the instructions given. You just have the icons of the paper and the arrows telling you what to do. So it's a very universal symbol, and because of that, you know, this is something that's it transcends language. It's a visual icon that doesn't need to be defined by words to mean something.
Which is so cool. Like that's a lot more deep than I think people probably initially give it credit for, on the fact that like, oh, it's like Steve said earlier, you know, it's a deck of cards with an arrow on it. But like the universal aspect of everyone knowing what an arrow is so true, but you almost don't even think about it until it's said out loud. Like I think that's powerful.
That's why the beginning of the video, it shows a bunch of street signs. It's a similar setup that I had to the original demo in 2016, as well as a new one. But let's see the videos. Yeah, so after the momentum logo, so I went out in Boston and shot all of these arrows in different places. And then, you know, the cards come into play. But it was just to visually demonstrate how, you know, ubiquitous arrows are and that they're basically everywhere that you look.
You know, that's definitely so cool. Yeah. So 2 questions that actually just came in. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say Ace of Diamonds asked, if someone is just getting into cardistry, where do you recommend they start?
Go to the Lotus in Hand channel and check out their boot camps.
So good.
They have this whole video series introducing you to the different genres of cardistry, the different styles of cardistry, how to get good at cardistry, how to, you know, get a better understanding of how to get views through cardistry. They have tutorials that take you through like basic to intermediate to advanced moves in successive order, and it's all free. I mean, their
videos are awesome.
Their cards sell out like crazy because they tend to, you know, take advantage of the whole scarcity concept. But the groundwork they've laid with their whole boot camp is fantastic. So I'd start there. And School of Cardistry, Jaspys's kind of sister project with the new deck order, is also another resource you can go to learn a lot of basic moves. So between those two, Lotus in Hand and School of Cardistry, those are 2 great resources on YouTube. And if you happen to live in a country where YouTube isn't available, that's not true because you're on here watching this now on YouTube.
There you go. So get a VPN and you can make it happen. But you know, we'll also link to both of those in the comments. And just as a quick side note too, anything we've been discussing in this show, so some of the, you know, the WikiWeb app, the motivation that Kevin's talked about, the Shiv video for the Aerodynamics, all that stuff will be linked in the comments below as well, just so that everyone can check all those resources out. We always like to make sure that all of these things that kind of lead to inspiration in the video or just informational resources are easily accessible. So keep an eye out for those. And so the other question we had in here too from Anthony, was do you plan on doing another presentation on cardistry like you did in Canada?
I don't have any plans to, but if I were invited again, I would definitely consider it. My experience with doing cardistry for that open mic in Toronto was that I had been in contact with Matty Gilbert because when I met him at Genie during a trip around America in 2015, we talked about doing a cardistry video with Matty Gilbert. And so I've been planning for that when I was going to meet him. And he messaged me that he had this open mic magic show that he was calling Open Sesame. And he asked if I would be interested in doing cardistry for it. So the same way that I agreed to work with him on a cardistry video before I could say no, I agreed to do the open mic before I could chicken out of it. And so it was a matter of like, committing to it. And then in the days leading up to it, writing out as many moves that I could do, and then whittling it down to the ones that were the most commercial. And then from there, putting them in an order so that it started with something that people could relate to, transition into something that would impress them, and through that, be able to tell my story of what I find fascinating about cards and why they should care. Yeah. And I actually closed the set by doing a bunch of packet cuts because by that point, I wanted to convince people of why I'm so fascinated with cards and what beautiful things could be done with them. And I basically explained packet cutting as kind of like a roller coaster for your hands. So nice. That kind of made sense in the sense that a lot of people can't tell packet cuts apart, but they can recognize flow. So right. I ended my set by doing the packet cuts that I was most familiar with, so that I just did them all in a row, and then when I close, hands are out here in applause cue ready, and then they applauded. So it was a one of a kind experience. One that I did have some prior practice with explaining my job in Singapore and doing a lot of cardistry demos for people there. So if I was ever offered a chance to do it again, I'd wholeheartedly, be on board for it.
Awesome. That's cool.
Nice. I was actually at MIT earlier this year, and I met the Domains. So Eric Domain and his father, Marty Domain, and I showed them some of my cardistry, and they said that, oh, you should come in sometime and do like a demonstration for some MIT students on it. And I was like, that would be so cool. But then coronavirus happened, so it all went to...
Damn coronavirus.
Yeah, definitely ruining a lot of, or at least postponing a lot of plans.
Yeah.
So, and
that's cool.
Caitlin Chen wanted to know if you are planning on doing a Portable Playground 3 at some point.
It's one of my goals. The first Portable Playground was in 2008, I think, and then the second was 2015. So if you go by
what is the portable? What is that?
So
for those that don't know.
So the video Portable Playground was a collab video that I did with Dan and Dave when I went to visit them in Cali at the I forget the name of the museum. It's a famous museum in California. But we went there and shot, just us doing some random flourishes and put it together in a really fun video that had this fun like jam video aesthetic. Nice. And then in 2015, I traveled around North America and Canada, made this big like U shape going from like New York to Florida to Cali up to Portland, Washington, and then Vancouver and Toronto. So like this big shape. And at first I wanted to make 3 videos because I was going to be in Amsterdam after that too for like a very short period of time. Nice. I was going to call them like AmeriCards, Canada, and Jamsterdam, I think.
Nice.
Oh no, it was going to be called Holand, like Holland. But when I was sitting there and editing the footage, I realized that it had given me the same feeling that I had when I was doing that jam video with Dan and Dave. Cool. So I decided to name that video of the entire North America tour Portable Playground 2. And the emphasis of those videos is basically that cardistry is better with friends. And so there's a lot of goofing around, a lot of funny moments, but also a lot of cool collaborative moments that, you know, is only possible when you're doing cardistry with other people. So, for example, my buddy Andrew has this move called Spring Triangle, where you spring some cards and it basically makes a triangle when you're done with it, right? I think my camera was a bit too high up. You know,
That's really
see if
cool.
I can get a clean one. Yep, missed the card,
Nice.
but
Wow,
so
that's really cool.
there's a shot. There's a shot in Portable Playground 2 where I do Spring Triangle, and then I put it between two packets that he has, and then he takes the whole thing and he spins it around.
Nice.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and there were segments from Maddie's video that were in there, and then there was like a quick shot of the open mic performance that I did too. That was in the credits.
Nice.
So,
Wait. Go ahead.
as a roundabout way to answer Caitlin's question, I'm probably aiming to do it 8 years after Portable Playground 2, or is it? 8 years. So that would be
7 years.
2000.
2008 to 2015, 7 years, so 2022.
Yeah, 2022.
Gives you some time. You got a couple years. Well, you got about a year and a bit.
Like
you better get working on that video.
either I maintain a consistent 7-year gap, or it's like a Fibonacci sequence. So,
Yeah.
so the years increase as they go by.
Did we get a Kyle question?
No, we did not.
Sorry, Dawn, we didn't get a Kyle question.
One of the other questions that kind of came in, I thought this is an interesting one because you kind of talked about, inadvertently, I think you've kind of answered this to some extent, but one of the questions was, do you have any other creative outlets other than cardistry? And I know you did talk about origami, and we talked about your kind of dive into the world of origami pre-show, but what other kind of creative aspects do you kind of use to occupy your time?
It's a good question.
So this isn't really something that has any particular output, but has a huge impact on me, which is reading. I love reading, and it spans everything from like nonfiction to comic books to these big fat novels. And it's so amazing to me that you can stare at ink blots on these sliced trees and hallucinate the inside of someone else's mind. So
that's a hell of a way to look at it, but yeah, you're right. You're spot on with that.
Yeah, or little diodes on these portable screens that we have right now. I'm reading a book on my iPad at the moment, and I'm actually enjoying the experience because my iPad is lighter than the physical version of that book would be. So when I was in college, I never partied at all. I didn't drink either at the time, and I spent most of my time watching movies and reading novels. And a lot of the novels that I found myself being a big fan of were these ones that had the main characters were all like child prodigies. So
Okay.
that's like Infinite Jest, The Instructions, Skippy Dies, so on and so forth. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer. And I kind of fell in love with postmodern fiction and lots of stuff with like footnotes within footnotes and meta narrative text and so on. And I've always wanted to be a writer of sorts. I never found myself being able to pull off fiction just because I get so insecure compared to all my heroes in that area. But it did go on to influence my passion for blogging. I have had blogs in the past, like I did Visual Madness for a while, and then Sybil Disobedience, and I was the editor for Who Shuffles Like That, which was a blog for cardists by cardists. Every week we had a different person who wrote a guest article for the site. And now I have Steal Like a Cardist that went on for a little bit, and that I'm hoping to get back onto when I can.
Nice.
So, a lot of people say we don't read anymore, but I don't think that's true. If you're scrolling through your Facebook or Twitter feeds, Reddit, and so on, you're still reading. It's just in a different format.
Yeah.
And even though these little minor paragraphs don't seem to do much on their own, collectively and cumulatively, it's shaping our ideals, our beliefs, our attitudes, our behaviors without us, consciously noticing it most of the time. I just watched The Social Dilemma with my brother yesterday. And so they talk a lot about that whole thing. And it's funny because the whole time we were getting notifications on our phones and we are like, yeah, can't check it.
That's funny. Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but we were, my girlfriend and I were told we should check it out. So we haven't watched it yet, but heard it's good.
And so, I think one of the interesting things, though, when you're reading on like the internet versus a book, though, is I think you do notice that grammatically speaking, like I hope that we never get to a point where people learn their grammar and speech skills from Reddit versus literature, only because there's no editing in Reddit. I mean, there is, you can edit a post, but people don't usually go out of their way to add commas and capitalization and proper punctuation on a Reddit post. Half the time it's not even, correct spelling. But,
yeah, I mean, OMG or LOL or everything's abbreviated nowadays.
And granted, I think, that's where a lot of like people always fear, like, oh, we're going to turn into this society where, instead of laughing, we're just going to be like LOL out loud. And that's going to be how we react to jokes. And ultimately, like, that's where I think books do still serve a phenomenal purpose because, it allows you to read in a way that I think improves your cognitive understanding, I guess, of the language, what the language is capable of. I mean, in this day and age, I still read books sometimes, and this is why I love reading it on an iPad or a Kindle. And I'm like, damn, I don't even know what that word is. And so you click it, and it gives you the definition, and you're like, all right, I learned something here today. And sometimes that happens on Reddit, but I feel like it's much more infrequently.
Caitlin says there is edit in Reddit.
Yeah. I mean, yes, you can edit a post on Reddit, but very, very rarely are people anymore editing their post on Reddit realizing they made a spelling mistake.
Yeah, I don't care. I just like, whatever.
I mean, and it's also funny because nowadays we're so heavily reliant on autocorrect that we don't care. And I've started to find that with my phone, my autocorrect is doing a terrible job, and then I have to correct it anyway. And I'm like, oh man, like I just need to start paying more attention while I type. So
oh yeah, like the worst is when you type something and it autocorrects to something that is not what you want.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever typed in "give me a sec," and it corrects to "give me a sex,"
yes,
you send it out to your mom before you're ready to. Yeah, it's awful.
Which Mark, thank you, Mark, thank you for the super chat. We really appreciate the support. And Mark has a question here, which is. Great episode once again, Kevin. How many moves have you created?
Oh my god! So what is this? Is it like a $5 donation that he gets?
Yes, it is.
That's super cool.
Dude, thank you so much.
It's our first one, right?
Yes, it is. Mark is too nice of a guy. Mark's Canadian, so he's nice, but Mark really is an amazing guy. So Mark, we really do appreciate the generosity.
Thank you so much, Mark.
How many moves have I created? I'll be conservative and say like 25.
Damn.
But here's the crazy thing. He created one. Oh, you put my question.
That was an accident. That was an accident.
I know. But you created. What's this called? Backboard? Is that called backboard?
Oh, backdrop.
Backdrop.
Like,
backdrop.
Like a backdrop behind you.
You see that shit? I just did it.
Congrats.
I just did it. What do you know? I did it again.
I missed it. Anyway. I'll have to watch the replay.
Yeah, I watched that. But I mean, the fact that like it just must be cool to create a move that everybody does in every single like video of cardistry,
Yeah, the fun thing too is that it's a great like final move. Like you do a whole sequence, and then at the end of it, you pop this like back there, and it's got this nice finality to it.
It really does.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where we see it all the time too, is as a closer, because it is just so satisfying. Like it's the amazing spot to just like, I don't know. It really is. You're right. It's
satisfying.
It is so satisfying. Yeah. It's just like the card goes back in, everything closes up nicely, and you just have a deck of cards in your hand again.
Yeah. There's like those 5 moves that I've seen that I'm just like, they're so satisfying. You have backdrop. That's one of them. Lego Love is one of them. The way Lego Love just looks, it's just ridiculous. ATM is another one that's just amazing. There's just the moves that kind of just hit me, and I'm like, wow, they just create so much coolness, you know?
Yeah, I'd say that Lego Love is partly what inspired Sputnik, this move from Snake Charmer. So this thing here.
Yeah, because Lego
So
Love's not hot enough. You have to create something
in
hot enough.
context with the full cut, it's this here. I'll try it again. So try to do it slow.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's so clean.
Crazy. Yeah, it really
Cleanliness is, to me, such an important part of
Yeah.
Yes.
what I consider to be good cardistry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, I think that goes a little bit to what Steve was saying earlier too about like this complexity of single presentation moves, for me not knowing a proper term for it, where you have all this buildup to get to a final point of presentation, and the buildup isn't necessarily clean or aesthetically pleasing. Then you get to the final part, that's the aesthetically pleasing part, and then there's no real conclusion or closer or clean follow-up, and it's just like, all right, cool, we're done. And you're like, wait, what just happened to me? Yeah. And like, granted, I think that's its own like little niche area of cardistry, and I'm not knocking it at all, because I think there's a place for it. Like you said, there are people who appreciate it, but it does lack that cleanliness and that finality.
Yeah, sometimes I see people doing like a really long anaconda or a long spring, but if the catch is messy, it doesn't count to me. Whoa,
Thank you
$20
so much,
super
dude.
sticker.
Thank you so much,
Dude,
Straightforward.
thank you so much,
We
man.
really do appreciate that. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
We appreciate all you guys, but really, thank you so
Yeah.
much. Honestly, we love doing these shows, and it wouldn't be a show without you all. Obviously, the chat just gets as wild as the show itself. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you have? I haven't checked. Do you have? Whether do you have tutorials online that people can purchase or support you, or a channel where you plan on doing that stuff, or?
I don't. I have free tutorials on my YouTube channel that were made a good 14 years ago, probably earlier.
Which, for nostalgia factors, we will link that below as well. Just make sure to check that out.
Yeah, fun fact: a lot of them were shot in my bathroom with a white T-shirt as the backdrop.
Nice.
That is awesome.
So I didn't have like a white background, so I just put like a T-shirt on the floor and filmed on that, and then I blew the exposure way up in Windows Movie Maker.
That's so funny. The fact it's so funny that nowadays. So before you had all the white background, and you try to blow it out, and that's the white backdrop, and now it's like the black backdrop, and all you can see is the hands moving.
Oh, that's been a vestige since the Handlords days. Like all of the Handlords disciples were shooting with long black sleeves on a black backdrop, so you just saw their hands and stuff.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy era too. There was a forum for Handlords, and there was like a private forum called the Playa Haters Forum, and so they would just talk smack about kids they didn't like, and they would dox these people and tell people to go harass them.
That's terrible. That's
terrible.
Like, and that's the funny thing, because I think now, like, in a lot of the communities I've seen around cardistry and this whole thing, like, it is a very supportive community, and the people who are, I don't want to say toxic, but the people who are not supportive or are trolls or really just are kind of go out and are negative, they don't seem to last long, or they seem to get isolated very quickly, because people in this day and age, I think, are much more aware of that negativity, which I think is amazing. But I'm also not surprised, based on the origin of the Handlords, that there was that whole stigma to it, we'll say.
I mean, you can cite even, the sort of divide between Handlords and the Dan and Dave side earlier on as an example of what niceness can do for you in this community.
Yeah.
Because Devo, who's blocked me on Instagram, by the way.
Dude, we're all blocked on Instagram.
We're all blocked on Instagram, yeah. I think Steve's the only one who may not be blocked, but if that's the case, I'm sure after this he will be.
Yeah, so
let's find out.
Devo's a genius. Has pioneered so many cool things in flourishing, and like I think that Cradle to Grave is a masterpiece. Like there's so many good moves on it, and it's unfortunate that Devo decided to work in a very closed system where he wanted to be the epicenter of it all and wasn't open to having people develop stuff and claim credits in their own ways. So on the other hand, you have Dan and Dave, who are like a more generous, open source approach, duo. And throughout the years, they've been very open to enabling the voice of people in the community to express. Like one of my big breaks was when they did, when they allowed me to do a video of the month for their website.
Right.
In like January of 2007. And that video went on to become the first video that Dimitri or Larry saw. So I was the guy that got Dimitri into Cardistry, which I was very surprised when I found that out, because he created Ripple Fan, one of my favorite moves. So
that's so sick.
It's like I was in New York a couple years ago talking to Dimitri and Patrick Barnabas. Patrick is one of the guys that runs Best Cards Alive, and he and his style was very much influenced by Dimitri. And Patrick noted how it was so insane that we were sitting there in like a little trio talking to each other, and like I was the guy that influenced the guy that got him into doing cardistry the way he does.
That's so sick. And I love those connections.
It's pretty cool finding that stuff out. There's stuff that you wouldn't even know until just randomly you find out. I think it's so cool finding out that information. And you never know. Like you might look up to someone in the cardistry community and realize that you're the one that got them into cardistry. It's really cool that can happen in such a small community.
And it's still a relatively new community too. So, and we talked about this a little bit at the pre-show as well, is that a significant portion of the creative minds which drove cardistry to where it is now are still active to some extent within the community, or still accessible to some extent. So like the fact that you can have these conversations with people who really are visionaries in the cardistry community. I mean, yourself included. Like it's crazy to think that, like, I mean, I'm genuinely just speaking truth there. Like, I think you've had such a significant impact on cardistry as a whole. Like, again, conservatively creating 25 moods, it's like, that's mind blowing, but like so awesome. And like to realize that you created Backdrop, which I think so many people here have seen across so many videos, and like being able to talk to you or anyone in the community who has had that sort of impact and that sort of contribution is just so cool in a small but still kind of like young art form.
I'm gonna call it Hoe Drop. When everybody asks, "What's the name of that?" I'll be like,
"I feel
Hoe
like
Drop, dude."
I feel like that has a different definition.
Didn't they used to call them hoedowns?
yeah, they did.
Oh my god!
But people will be like, "What's that called?" I'll be like, "It's called Hoe Drop," and they'll be like, "What?" No, that's how they'll know who created it.
So I have an idea for the giveaway, and basically what we're doing is that we're giving away a pack of Aerodynamics cards. This one isn't sealed, but you'll get a sealed one. So we'll make this really simple. I've got a card here.
Okay.
It's got a value and a suit. This is to the people in the comments, by the way. So to enter,
I can't play. I can't play.
To play. Yeah.
No, I won't play. I won't play.
To enter,
I already have mine. Here's Tyler's.
So to enter the giveaway, write a comment that includes a book that you recommend and the value of a card. So for example, Gone with the Wind, 4 diamonds. And should we do like so the time limit will be 5 minutes. We'll have like a 5-minute timer, and whoever's closest will get a pack of Aerodynamics sent to you. So let me just pull up the timer.
Kevin.
Yeah.
If you can tell us in our private chat what the card is, that way we know and we can keep our eyes on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let me just write that here. So yeah, there's a book recommendation. Cool. And oh my god.
Hold on, don't start yet, people. Don't start yet.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to hold this on camera so I'm not switching it out. And then I'm going to start the 5-minute timer now. So we'll resume
he's good with his hands.
We're going to resume our conversation, but this will be in sight the whole time. So
cool.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out there. So, and I think one of the questions that actually came in a little bit early, and what we'll do is we'll do a fun question since this came in. We're having a change to our Kyle question. This week is going to be a Caitlin question. And Kevin, this one might make you think a little bit on it since it's geared towards you. So we like to have a little fun question that's not necessarily, I don't know, makes you think a little bit. And here you go for it. If you were accidentally placed in an insane asylum, what would you tell them to prove to them that you were sane and not just pretending?
Right.
I mean, I feel like my answer here is
Right.
like, you're screwed. Good luck. But
I'd tell them that Garfield is overrated.
I feel that's
Bro, you're lucky you live in Boston, man. Because we're boys because you live in Massachusetts, but that was low.
I say that as, a kid who grew up on Garfield, and over time I've started reading Calvin and Hobbes more. Loved it.
Calvin and Hobbes is phenomenal. And Dilbert
and
as well.
went back to Garfield in comparison to Calvin and Hobbes, and I was like,
hold
oh my
on.
God.
Bro, but that's like comparing Cardistry and Magic.
No.
Yeah, it is, because Garfield is dope. You gotta look at it in different ways.
I'm a big fan of Garfield spoofs, which there are so many of. There's a whole subreddit called I'm Sorry John, which takes Garfield and turns him into this H.P. Lovecraft kind of old gods,
that's
horrific kind of creature. And there's Garfield minus Garfield, which is his website that puts all these spins and Lasagna Cat on YouTube. So there's a lot of stuff that came out making fun of Garfield that is something that I'm a fan of. But when I go back to read OG Garfield, I'm like, I don't know why I found this funny.
See, I actually have a fundamental issue with Garfield that I believe Garfield created the whole hating Mondays culture.
He totally did.
Honestly, I hate that mentality because I don't want to wake up on Monday and be like, ah, shit. That just sucks.
But
I blame Garfield for that.
No, but hold on. First of all, Garfield came way before Calvin and Hobbes. So Calvin and Hobbes wouldn't be Calvin and Hobbes without Garfield. It's kind of like the Hoe Drop. That people.
No, I mean, just because it preceded Calvin and Hobbes doesn't mean that it can't be overrated.
Yeah, that is true.
But here's the thing: Garfield changed people's lives. I mean, here's Tyler who's talking about hating Mondays. That literally came from Garfield, and the fact that didn't they use it in Office Space? One of the funniest, greatest. No, the Case of the Mondays.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So it's literally changed the way we look at Mondays. What has Calvin and Hobbes done for the world?
He has stickers that go on trucks of Calvin.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
That is iconic. I love
but that's kind of white trash though. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, I only see it on pickup trucks, but still.
Yeah, exactly. Garfield's better. He's cool looking too.
I'm more of a Dilbert person. I enjoy Dilbert. I still think Calvin and Hobbes. See, they also hit different points though. If you need just good office humor, Dilbert's your man. If you need something generally just lighthearted but Devil Child, Calvin and Hobbes, I think if anything is an evolution of Dennis the Menace.
Yeah, agreed.
There's a bit of Problem Child in that too, a little bit of Dennis the Menace.
Yeah.
What I have always been intrigued by was one person's analysis that Calvin and Hobbes is a precursor to Fight Club in the sense that, Hobbes is to Calvin what Tyler Durden is to the narrator, and that Susie Durkins is similar to a Marla Singer in the movie /book.
That's actually a crazy way to look at it, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's a cool fan theory online about that.
I like that.
Yeah, there's the whole I made a strong connection with a friend online years ago just through our mutual love for the series Calvin and Hobbes. Her username at the time was Space Girl Spiff, which is a reference to Spaceman Spiff from the Calvin Hobbes series. And some of the layouts of the whole Sunday colored editions and the story arcs, when the pet, I think the raccoon dies in Calvin and Hobbes. It's very moving and takes these subjects that are seen through the perspective and eyes of a kid and deals with these very dark themes in a way that timer's up.
All right.
Hold on, nobody got it, but nobody's guessing.
No, we do have a close one.
Yeah, but it's not.
The closest one is one that's not the same color, but it's the same value.
Oh no, there's one that's the same
we have
color
one that's
and
the same
suit
color
that's two
and
cards
close.
away.
Yeah.
So I
Oh.
guess
Hawk.
so. I guess that depends on how we probably should have defined what close was, but
Oh, yeah, there's one that's the same color and suit. Oh, well, if it's the same suit, it's going to be the same color. There's one that's the same suit. It's just one card away.
oh
Oh,
yeah,
really?
there is. Ooh, and that's
Yeah.
a great recommendation too.
That is a good recommendation. I
Oh,
have
yeah,
only read
that is.
one of that whole series. And you
So-
guys are
so-
probably wondering.
So that
"Ooh."
one's the winner then.
All
Yeah,
right.
I'd say
That's
so.
that's only one off, same suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our winner is
Kevin Waters.
Kevin's
Kevin
like, do
Waters.
that one. Before he even
Which
knew,
is-
he's like, do that one.
Which is kind of coincidental because I'm Kevin and we were talking about Bill Waters' son.
oh my god.
But
So-
yeah, fantastic recommendation for the Discworld series. Like, I don't know where to start with that. Probably from the beginning, but
Yeah.
you know,
Such a
Terry
great series
Pratchett's a
though.
good writer. I read the I think the Fifth Elephant when I was in secondary school, and I enjoyed that a lot.
Nice.
Nice.
So yeah, Kevin, send
Waters.
me an email at visualmadness@gmail.com or reach out to me in Instagram DMs, whichever way you remember to. And
He'll do it
I'll
right
have
now.
one-
He'll remember. He won't
Yeah,
forget.
I'll have one of these sent your way. Thank you for the recommendation. Are these comments going to be
Yeah.
up still?
So these comments will stay up with the live. So in the replay, you'll still be able to go to the
Yeah.
timestamp and they'll be there.
Because I would definitely want to check
Two
out
hours and
all
30
the,
minutes. You'll get it.
the recommendations.
You know, there's
that
some
people-
definitely some good recommendations in here.
There's
Yeah.
the other Caitlin question. The actual Caitlin question.
That is yeah. Oh, so there was one other Caitlin question that I want to bring up though too, because I think Caitlin's asked this in the past with other guests, and I actually like this question in general. How would you say magic and cardistry has impacted you in terms of handling anxiety and stress?
So the ancient monks used to have these things called worry beads, which are those little bracelets with the balls on them, and they would take them out and then use each bead as like a way to meditate, so that their hand and their conscious mind was being distracted by something easily repeatable and soothing, so that their unconscious mind was free to meditate and relax and roam. So for me, that and like Chinese medicine balls are kind of the same things with cardistry, because you're repeating the same thing that takes up that conscious part of your mind, and in doing so, it kind of occupies the monkey mind and lets you relax and drift off, not to sleep, but into this mental state that's one of relative calm and ease.
Yeah.
So it also depends on the type of move that you're practicing, because let's say you're doing a video shoot and you have to be camera ready in 5 minutes, and you're trying to get a move down because you keep messing it up and you only have so much time to shoot it. That can be a stressful situation to practice in.
Yeah.
In particular, I'm referring to Rise when we were shooting it. But outside of that, if you're just using it for fidgeting, I think that it's a great, because we've all seen the kind of transferal of RLS, restless leg syndrome, to fidget spinners, a bunch of years ago. And cardistry is, I mean, I think Jay Sankey called cardistry glorified fidget spinning at one point, and it kind of became a meme in the cardistry community. But I wouldn't say that's necessarily an insult. I do think that there's a similar effect that it has on stress and anxiety in terms of, being able to do micro, easily repeatable, dexterous tasks successfully in succession feels rewarding with each time that you do it. And it's a great way to have that little feedback loop of input and output, providing something successful without leaving any residue.
Yeah.
Like if you draw, you're going to run through paper. Same thing if you write, or if you make sculptures, there's going to be a lot of debris on the floor. But for cardistry, you start with this, and if you're not Shivraj, you end with the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful little tool to tinker around with and de-stress.
I don't know about you, but I always end up with debris on the floor when I'm trying to do some cardistry and magic. That's just how it is, man.
But at least you can pick that up.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think I did this thing on Instagram a while ago called like fun cardistry facts, where I would like write this complete string of nonsense. So one of them was like, run out of fanning powder? dandruff works just fine in the pinch.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh man.
That's funny. All right, go on with the other Caitlin question.
I still don't know how I feel about this question in general.
It's her question.
Uh,
I want people to be totally honest. It doesn't have to be good. It could be totally bad.
I just feel like it's awkward for Kevin. Like Kevin's met us twice for a total of like
But that's the
5
coolest thing
hours
about it. He
now.
could be like, Steve's a pain in the ass. Tyler, I don't know, has a cool beard. I don't know.
Thanks. Thank you for making me a basic person, Steve.
Tyler uses beard oil.
I do use beard oil.
I moisturize my face. There you go.
So yeah, how would you, if you could describe only Steve and Tyler with one word each, what word?
one word each.
Yeah.
So I
Caitlin,
misread the question.
Caitlin, just so you know, he missed the question. Just so you know, Caitlin, you always have to put Tyler before my name.
Yeah, so that way it doesn't sound like Steven Tyler of Aerosmith.
I thought about that so much. Like
Yeah.
when after I Skyped you guys, I was like, Steven Tyler. But I misread the question in that I thought she was asking me to describe both of you with one word.
Oof,
And
that's
so, yeah, like
That's impossible.
No, I think the word I'd use to describe both of you with just one word is chummy. Like, I don't know if that has negative connotations, but you
Chummy? Isn't that the stuff you throw into the
like the ocean,
for sharks to attack?
But you guys seem like, you know, friendly in this kind of chum kind of way.
Yeah.
And I'd guess that you guys are really easy to hang out with, and just, you know, I mean, your stream's name is a parallel to the phrase "dicking around." So,
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
It's informal in a very nice way, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
We appreciate that.
We
Well, you know,
appreciate
in a post-COVID world, we will definitely have an experience where we'll all get to hang out together and, you know, grab a beer or pizza or something. But, you know,
you can teach us the whole flip. I mean, the whole
oh, flip. Oh my God, you've now become a pimp on this show.
I think. Oh man,
He's
there was a flip move like that. There was a GIF of it around, but I don't know. It's not very PG-13.
Oh my gosh!
I think Lena went to sleep. So
yeah,
I think
so we're kid friendly. We're no longer kid friendly here. But you know, no, and actually, it's really funny.
Mentioned 2 Girls 1 Cup on the screen.
I mean,
she's probably like, "Oh, cool."
That's innocuous enough. Her parents were probably sitting there being like, "Oh my God!" But yeah, that's innocuous enough that unless you know what it is, you don't know what it is. So it's good.
I think she's from Spain though, so she might not have gotten to Spain. Who knows?
She's
so
not.
What is it? It's like dos chicas.
I don't know.
Dos chicas unas. I don't know how you, una. I don't know how you say cup in Spanish. So funny enough, talking about the hoe flip and that moment of thought you had there. One of the questions we had was, what is your kind of creative process? Because I feel like saying the hoe flip may have triggered you to like come up with a new move on the fly there. But, you know, when you really get into it, and whether it be cardistry or origami or filmmaking or anything, you know, what's your kind of creative process to take an idea or come to that idea, even the beginning and then that execution?
So there's a line from a nervous tick motion of the head to the left by this music artist that I'm blanking on. But the line is, "You're what happens when 2 substances collide." And so I think that any time that I've come up with something, it really is just 2 things that hadn't been put together being put together for what I hope is the first time. So with Backdrop, I had been messing around with Andre's move, the backpack cut, and like getting the car in this position and trying to move it around to do the cut, which I still can't. And it occurred to me that, you know, with instant replay, Paul Harris's thing, where you were, you know, shooting this card over like that, whether it's 1 card or a packet, if you move the index finger underneath and you put a thumb on it instead, you would get enough of a curve to do the same thing. And I was quite happy that you could do this from this position without having to tilt like instant replay did, because then you would elbow the person next to you in the face. So just from here, you could do that move. And just that little discovery led to the creation of Backdrop. And I was lucky enough to be one of the earlier guys to discover it so that I could in some way say it was mine. Another instance of this is this move Repainted, where it's a blank fan, and then you do this and all of the colors come out.
Oh, wow.
So this came about as another kind of remix / mashup where I was practicing the fan and one hand close. But at the same time, I accidentally did the reverse fan. So what that ended up looking like in the mirror was this. And so I noticed it as something remarkable. Matt is completely right. It's Andrew Bird. Andrew Bird's nervoustic motion of the head to the left. Yeah.
He's a genius. He's a genius, Andrew Bird.
Oh yeah, like I haven't seen him play live, but him having like the multiple instruments and
but dude, some of his like cathedral concerts are just ridiculous.
I bet he's fantastic.
You gotta watch him on YouTube, man. They're phenomenal.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. How quickly we're thrown into some other conversation.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, right.
So Dan and Dave's Molecule 1 has this spin at the end where you do this. A packet goes around the thumb like that. Or the thumb goes around the packet, depending on your perspective of it. So not long after that, I was learning this move from my friend Will, where instead of doing a push-off like this, he would do a push-off backwards so that you could like have a display happen and then, do a worm-like display with it and stuff. So as I was playing with that, my thumb got snagged on the rebound and ended up doing this like half spin. So I played with this for a while, and then I remembered the kind of full dedication that a spin like the Molecule 1 had, and it inspired me to do that with this move.
That is so cool.
And that led to the creation of this move, Raccoon.
Raccoon? Wait, how'd you get Raccoon out of that?
So you remember that little Dave Williamson, like Rocky Raccoon?
Rocky the Raccoon, yeah.
Yeah, Rocky Raccoon, and it would like spin around with his tail falling around and stuff. So
yeah, so cool.
That's what this move felt like. It felt like that little raccoon, going around in circles and stuff.
That's so cool.
That's so fun. That's what fascinates me. I'm like, oh, cool move. How'd you come up with a name? That's what's fascinating to me.
This one here, right? So this thing here, this sequence, this is all one move. And
it's so funny because we could barely see it.
I'll try it slowly. So there.
Nice.
Here, around, back, and then close.
Nice.
So that move is actually called Sick and Twisted Wings of the Mockingbird. And it's a parody name because it's inspired by Sick and Twisted by Scott and Sean Waters. It's inspired by Wings of the Butterfly by Chris Hessness. And it's inspired by Mockingbird by my friend Darren. So because a lot of these spinning moves had these sorts of names at the time, when I came up with this as a joke, I called it Sick and Twisted Wings of the Mockingbird so that it would have this, the name would fill up the whole screen and stuff. But it ended up taking off.
That's so cool.
People seem to like it. So that's back on topic. Another example of combining things to come up with something new. There is a move of mine called Satellite, where it looks like this. And I'll try to do it slowly, but there's one part here where this packet spins a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Before you send this back around and close it like that. So how I came across this thing here was that I had this cut for a very long time where it does this and ends up here. And I had no idea how to get out of this. I didn't know what to continue this with. I didn't know how to end it. I just had this, formation here. So I played with this for a couple of years, and I eventually remembered that my friend Jaspis had this move where he put a card here, like that, and then he would flick this here with his fingers so that it would, spin around and land on the inside like that. So he would do this, and it basically like goes shoot down here. That's cool. I realized that I could get into that position like this and then receive this packet just like that one card did. And that basically was my way out of that dilemma.
That's sick.
So I would say that probably none of anything I've created is 100% original, but it's always a matter of colliding two substances, and then sometimes it works out. So
Nice.
I'd say that the more you know in cardistry, the more you inform your fingers of things that could go on to influence each other and combine in new and surprising ways. Because I think that with cardistry, there are two main emotions that make a move impressive, and one of them is a feeling of satisfaction, and the other is a feeling of surprise. So if a move is very satisfying, it feels great, and if a move is really surprising, it feels great too.
Yeah. Now, how do you remember? Like, how do you remember what you did? Because I would think that some stuff is created by mistake, and then when you do it, you're like, "Oh my god, what did I just do? It was so cool!" And then, do you ever just forget it and not able to do it again, or?
It hasn't happened to me, but I know it's happened to the Bucks before. Because sometimes I'll watch them fiddling around where they're not looking at their hands, and I'm like, "What's that?" And they're like, "I don't know. I wasn't paying attention." I'm like,
yeah, tough world, right?
yeah.
Like,
But sometimes,
you know, when you're so good at something, and you just do it because it just happens, and you can do it, and
yeah,
other people are like, "Oh my god, what was that?" And they're like, "I don't know."
yeah, like those guys are definitely prodigies. Like they lay the groundwork for so much in cardistry. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Which,
It is
yeah,
cool.
I think anyone we talked to in the past about, you know, how they got into cardistry, some of like the more foundational members, we'll say, the foundational kind of people in the community, they're all like, they always mention Dan and Dave, like it's just how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
they're such generous, nice guys as well. Like you'll
Yeah.
never meet a nicer pair of guys.
Yeah, we haven't met Dave yet, but we
had Dan on
the show.
Yeah, a while
Yeah.
back.
Can you tell them apart?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well, so far we haven't seen them in person together yet. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see when we see them together. You know, usually Dan is the more talkative one, I think.
Oh, really? Huh.
I just see him talking more like in interviews and stuff like that. I think he.
Oh, I see.
Just
maybe
to me, he's the one that.
Maybe
I see
he's more available because Dave's the one with the kid. You know.
Yeah, maybe.
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah. I just whenever I see like an interview or some video, or it's usually always Dan.
We'll have to see there.
Yeah.
So one of the other questions that came in earlier too, and I said on this one because it just kind of seemed like a interesting question, I think, from the creative point of view. Are there any plans on your end to do more solo videos, whether it be, you know, showing off like routines or tutorials or anything along those lines?
Oh, tutorials for sure. Solo videos, I don't think so because I just haven't been coming up with that much material for a while. I don't think I have it in me anymore to really pump out stuff industrially. But who knows? I might come up with stuff. Like there's been a couple moves that I've come up with in the last couple years that I haven't really published yet, but I've kind of done it on Instagram Lives. So there's this cut here. It's called Sidewinder, and it has this fun little moment where this goes like that before closing like this.
Cool.
So that's just a nifty packet cut. And another one's called Baby Steps. So Baby Steps is this here, where it's a looping Charlier cut sequence where the packets are interlaced between each other.
And that looks so sick. God, that
like that.
The Aerodynamics, this deck is amazing, by the way. Like everything you've shown tonight with this deck has just, I think, been amplified by the cards themselves. Like they look so cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
And Kevin, I have a problem with what you just said. You said you don't know if you have it in you, dude. You got to be like Eminem. You got to be like the OG, and just all of a sudden come out with some ridiculous thing that you just created, and people are gonna be like, "What?"
Yeah. Trigger happy, pack heat. Hit him with the venom.
Yeah.
So
do it.
And going off that too, mentioning you don't know if you have it in it. So what do you find now takes up most of your day? Like, what is are you still doing cards and cardistry as kind of a career? Do you have a other career based on the fact that you went to school with film? Do you do something in that regularly, or where do you find a lot of your time goes now?
I'd say that there's a significant amount of my time that goes into trying to figure out how to manage my time. And it might sound like kind of, you know, tautological, but because of quarantine, there's just all of this time to do things that sometimes you reach a point of like analysis paralysis where it's like, oh, I've got so much time to do things. What should I do?
Yeah.
You know? So I'm lucky that I've currently found this big fat book to, you know, bust my way through. And these days I have been looking through some archival footage of like cardistry videos from years gone by. This guy Jedrick, the same guy who invented Pringle, the little bird butterfly thing, he uploaded like a 12 gigabyte folder of cardistry videos to Reddit a while ago, and so I downloaded the whole thing. And there are 81 folders of you know, different cardists and teams, and I've made it through like maybe 2% of the way watching them.
Oh wow!
And my hope is to kind of, you know, maybe find something that's lost in time and polish it off. And, you know, I think that there's so much innovation in cardistry that sometimes people miss the fact that something that's old but underappreciated could get lost in time.
Yeah.
So I was just watching in that folder a video by a Handlords member where there was this uncut routine done with a table, and he did something that I've never seen before, and I'm like, whoa, like nobody knows about this because it, you know,
It's
unless
gone,
you were there, it's not on YouTube or anything. So
That's crazy.
It was a really, it felt like, you know, how in the beginning of There Will Be Blood, Daniel Plainview is by himself and he's like out in the desert, and like, you know, he falls down the shaft and breaks his leg and shit, but he finds that like, you know, little silver nugget, and that's what gets him started as like, you know, his whole ambitious tycoon adventure throughout the film. So
yeah, that's so cool.
Same way,
that's really cool that you found that, you know, and you can dive in and, like you said, just find gems, you know.
Oh yeah, like there's this cardist by the name of Jonas Hagelin who first started posting videos on a pre-Cheaters Cheater website called VN Family. And so VN Family was a bunch of file folders that people like Bone and Huron would post to. And yeah, he was just this lefty from Sweden who posted webcam videos of him doing stuff he created. And like, this was apropos of nothing. It's like, where do you draw your inspiration from?
So cool.
When there's nobody else doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So he was coming up with crazy Ace Productions, one-handed cuts, two-handed flowy sequences. And the guy was kind of like a polymath. He was, you know, into pen spinning. He was into video editing. He was into, you know, juggling and so on and so forth. And piano as well. And he may have been the guy to really introduce the concept of isolations in cardistry before Jaspis and Zach and Hector and Noel and so on. So yeah, sometimes looking backwards instead of forwards, you can find some things that warrant a little bit more of attention. So another example is that a lot of people think that Spring Triangle is my move just because I demoed it in liquid paper, but it's not. It's not my move.
Yeah.
It's Andrew Avila's move, and the reason I kind of rediscovered it is that I was on Reddit, and someone made a post. It's like, you know, what's your knackiest move? And Andrew said like, oh, probably Spring Triangle. And I was like, what's Spring Triangle? Because I hadn't heard of it before. And so he sent me a video from his World Cardistry Championship audition round, and it's him springing the cards in a triangle form there. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I'd never seen anything like that before. And like, I think to them, it's like when you release something in cardistry, you kind of assume that the world's seen it. But maybe sometimes that's not the case, especially if you release it in an avenue where it's not, say, on Instagram, where it tends to propagate more widespreadly. So that move, you know, felt like something lost in time to me. So like I studied it, learned it, practiced it, and then eventually we included it with permission on liquid paper. And now everyone thinks the move is mine.
That's funny.
And it's not. So I have to keep doing PSAs to people who are asking about it.
Well, you know what? Now you can just direct them to Deckin Around at 2 hours and 54 minutes, and
Yeah,
that
after
you're gonna find out
the
some
big
information.
hold up a big sign. It was not me. It's not me.
Oh man.
That's funny.
So another question that came up, and this was submitted earlier, was do you have any more collaborations lined up? And I think based on the question, I'd say probably within your cardistry kind of in general, but also maybe on the deck side of things.
The only real collaboration that I have right now is with my designer, Pablo.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't say he's mine. I don't own him or anything, but he's the one I've been working with on Aerodynamics and the following version 2, and he's great.
Nice.
Like, I met him in Mexico City when I went to the AMCM last year, and he's so quick at taking an idea and developing it into something that looks pretty polished and final in such a short time. Because we saw one of the Cardamundi decks that had the kind of red and orange yellow color to it, and I was like, that kind of looks like McDonald's fries. And so he took that and edited it so it looked like the card back was McDonald's fry box, and he put a bunch of fries in it too, in like a day, or less than a day. So.
It astounds me how quickly some of these designers really can go from like an idea to basically a finished product. It's crazy.
Luke Wadey's that way too, man.
Yeah.
He's like, you can give him something, and he does the same thing.
Nathan's
so
fantastic
fast.
too. Nathan Stichter.
All right.
He's the guy.
What did he do?
He put out wavy playing cards, but these days he's been working with Leo Flores on Missing. So they put out the collage deck, the ink deck, and stuff. And I worked with Nathan a little bit on a couple of like T-shirt designs and stuff, and he was so like quick and efficient at like getting that idea down. I had him help me with a T-shirt that you remember the expert at the card table where it's like just green and then you have the golden word to say expert at the card table.
Yeah.
So I had him made a T-shirt for me that's a green T-shirt, gold lettering, and it says the X Vert at the card table.
So good.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I'm the only one in the world who can wear that shirt.
That is really funny.
That's cool.
Oh,
well, I mean, we can wear it. It just wouldn't look good on us. It wouldn't be true. It wouldn't mean anything.
If anyone asked us to prove it, we'd fail miserably. So, and so I guess one of the other questions I had here too was, one of the things that I think we see a lot within the community is as people get more well known, I guess, a lot of times they step back to some extent. And I think you are very involved, obviously, in the community still, whether it be the recent release of the Aerodynamics, whether it be, the work you did while you were part of the Virts still, or even just, in fact, being accessible, coming on the show and talking. What are your kind of thoughts and feelings on activity within the community that you are helping build?
Oh, wow. I don't know if I'm helping to build it now. I might have in the earlier days, but I think that right now, what I try to help out with is to give assurance and support. So there's a lot of people who sometimes message me asking, hey, I have this move. What do you think? I've got this deck. What do you think of it? I'm doing one of your moves. Can you give me advice on it and stuff? And I always try and remember that when I was 15, I got Dan and Dave's phone numbers from Ethan Friday, a mutual friend of ours, and I used to call them all the time from Singapore. It was an international call, and this was before it came out, so it probably cost a lot of money too. And I would ask them everything, like, oh, so what movies are you watching? What are you up to these days? You reading any books? Oh, do you have like this and that? And like, oh, what's the next project you have coming out? So on and so forth. And I was probably so annoying and not realizing it, right? So when I think about like that and how they tolerated me for all that time, and eventually we became really close friends when I moved to California for college and got to hang out with them on a regular basis, which is still to me like such an honor. It's a larger scale now, but I try and remember what that meant to me. and I try and help out people who, you know, ask for help in that way. Because there's a presentation that Andre Jick gave at the 2015 Cardistry Con, where he was talking about his own journey in cardistry, going from someone who was like, you know, posting contest videos on 21 Aces and being like very closely involved with DeVoe and Handlords, and then getting kicked out of that and working with Theory 11 and putting out Genesis, Genesis 2, and you know, working as a consultant on these movies and doing commercial ads and stuff, and then, you know, working on the media side of Theory 11. And he said that as you go on in your path as a cardist throughout the years, your role is going to change constantly, you know? And so I remember that because for me, that's happened too. Like, it used to be that I was maybe a guy who was coming up with moves and putting out tutorials. And then I was like, you know, doing performance videos and video concepts with the Virts. And then we were putting out cards. And then now I have, you know, my own things with the Instagram live streams that I do and the cards that I put out, and just helping people, you know, who ask for advice and tips on things. Like just today, this person was asking me whether he should get a new pack of Red Wheels or Nobody Knows cards. And I was like, hey man, like I think the Nobody Knows is like my favorite deck from last year. You know, if I were you, I'd get those. Because I've heard sometimes people message me and they tell me that they're surprised that I answer, because they'll message some other cardists and they won't hear back from them. And I understand, because some of them are very popular and, like, you know, you get so many messages, it's hard to keep up. But for me, I'm fortunate that I get a manageable amount of correspondence, so that I try and respond to it as well as I can. So I've long forgot what the original question you're asking was.
Well, geez, I think either way that was a great answer there, and I think it was, you know, really the idea of you know, how do you feel you should be as a, you know, member who's building the community, interacting with the community. And I think you answered it there, you know, remembering what it was like when you first started and trying to provide that same level of support to people who reach out to you asking for that support. And I think I think you nailed it there. So
yeah, the only thing is you gotta, what's your phone number? just put it in the chat and we'll have, you know, 30 people just calling you randomly in the middle of the night. I was thinking,
what movie are you watching?
What movie are you watching? Are you eating popcorn too? Because what kind of popcorn? I like smart food. That's my favorite. But what kind of popcorn are you eating? You're eating Jack's? Who the hell eats Jack's?
Oh my God, that's funny though. And I mean, listen, you know, it's interesting to see, because I think you do have at that younger age. It's the same thing we were talking about earlier, where Steve was mentioning with kids going downhill skiing super fast past anyone because they don't care, or they know what they want and they go for it. And same thing with you. You knew you wanted to talk to Dan and Dave and be this great cardist, and you took the path you needed to get there. It may not have been the conventional one or the you know, the most I don't want to say. I'm trying to think. Like, as an adult, I feel like we'd all be. It wasn't the most subtle. But at the same time, subtlety is something you don't really start to consider until you're older and you realize, like, you need to be subtle. But clearly, you don't. As long as you're 15-year-old Kevin Hoe calling Dan and Dave.
Yeah, you know what? You just go for what you want, as long as you're not like obnoxious. And not saying that you weren't obnoxious, but as long as you're kind and you're, you know, and
the intentions are pure. I think that's what
they probably understood that you were just thirsty for knowledge and thirsty for, you know, whatever, if it was their book or, you know, you were just inspired by them, and you know, maybe they went through the same type of thing and you know, and understood what you were going through, and that's why they went through with it, you know, or tolerated, or whatever word you want to use. You know, I think it's cool that you do the same for others. You know, I think, like Tyler said, just, you know, there's a lot of people online that don't have a lot of followers that still don't respond, you know, and they read the comment too. You know, they might read the direct message, but they still don't respond to it. It's like, come on, dude. Like, it literally takes you 36 seconds to say, yeah, I'm not interested, or, you know, oh, thanks. That, you know, sorry, we don't have any decks left, or whatever it is, you know. It literally, I'm a firm believer in answering your DMs, it could save somebody's life, literally. You know, and Caitlin mentioned it, whether it's stress, anxiety, you know, there's a lot of people that are going through some really bad things in our community that deal with really uncomfortable situations and turn to cardistry, turn to magic to really take their mind away from that, you know, and they're reaching out to someone who really inspires them and they really look up to them. And then that person doesn't respond to them, you know, and it says a lot, you know, and literally they could be at the end of their rope. They could be in a really bad place and they're, you know, reaching out one last time, trying to, you know, pull on a thread of any sort, you know, and then, you know, their idol, the person they look up to the most, like reads it and they don't respond. And it's unfortunate, you know, so I appreciate people like you who do take the time and respond to people in, even if it's to tell, you know, what's your favorite book or, you know, what deck to buy over this deck or that deck. You know, I think it's important and it goes a long way.
Yeah, I remember being in Singapore when I was starting to get into cardistry and magic and stuff. And, you know, before social media, the only real way to meet up and find people who did this, aside from all the forums that you had, was to come across people by chance at a magic shop or by complete coincidence, just meet people who happen to be card handlers as well. One time I was on the train in Singapore and this guy keeps looking at the cards in my hand and he's like, are you Darren? And I'm like, no, you're really close. You're really close. I'm Kevin.
Oh man.
But yeah, I remember the days where it was like finding out that there was someone who was I lived in the East Coast and Huron lived in the West Coast, right? But knowing that there was another person who was as enthusiastic about cardistry as me, I would travel to the West Coast all the time, even though it took like, you know, around an hour to get there, which is a long time in Singapore time because the country is really small, nothing in American time, right? But I treasured that there was someone who was so into cardistry like me that I could meet up with all the time. And now we have such an expanse of that we tend to take it for granted, you know? And I see some people being mean to other people in the community sometimes, and it kind of breaks my heart because if you knew that there was one other person who did cardistry and was interested in it in a time where you didn't have as many people who are now, like you guys would be best friends, I think.
Yeah.
Regardless of, you know, your thoughts on what his chops were or if they were like tryhards or so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy to think that this probably started, that all this cardistry, like what cardistry is now, probably started because Ricky Smith showed Dan and Dave Five Faces of Sybil. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I think people are so quick to say, oh, you flashed, or oh, you did that wrong, or this or that, you know, rather than just saying good job. It literally doesn't, or don't say anything at all. You know, if someone flashed, or, you know, I was talking to someone actually recently, and, you know, Tyler might know who it is. I can't, I don't want to name any names, but I was talking to someone and they're a magician, a new magician. And this person, you know, I was talking about how they look like they're doing very well, you know, very quickly. And the person was like, oh, you know, thank you. I really appreciate that. I've been hearing a lot of like bad feedback for how, you know, I'm doing things, you know, so I'm really practicing and trying. And it's like, this person's crushing it, literally crushing it. And the fact that people are still like nonstop saying like negative things, trying to put the person down, is just, it's so weird, you know?
Yeah, you see that a lot in Reddit culture too, where I've been the subject of many comment threads because of the videos that have gone viral on Reddit before. And you'll typically see the same pattern of comments where it's like, all right, just shuffle the cards already. Or it's like, of course they're Asian, you know, and so on. And it feels that people have the need to, because they can't surpass what the people in the video are doing, they have to one-up them in another kind of way. And normally this is done through like cutting down or like sarcasm
Yeah.
or insulting humor, so on and so forth. Which isn't to say that it bothers me, but it's so predictable sometimes.
Yeah, of course. You can have thick skin, but it's still something that's like, okay, well, whatever. You know what I mean?
But yeah, it doesn't make the community as welcoming as, I think we are, Magic, cardistry, playing cards in general, it is a very welcoming community, but that one person with that negative comment could push someone out who could do great things within the community, who really is trying to get into it as a hobby, and you're kind of just discouraging. And it's a bummer to see. It really is. I think the good thing about Reddit is you can downvote people,
Yeah.
and
But that's also a high
I've totally abused that before.
yeah,
I mean, haven't we all?
yeah, I mean that's the positive and the negative of Reddit is you can downvote things, but also people can downvote your things. So
also, in case you forgot, the upvote and downvote buttons are both arrows.
there you go. Oh my
they
god,
are. Yeah, it's funny. It's not funny. Like it's crazy because I've only been in the community for a year, and I've seen some really amazing, cool people get pushed out because the community's toxic, and that's just something that we have to kind of band together and push those toxic people out rather than the good people being pushed out by the toxicity. You know what I mean? And I think we just have to hold those people accountable, whether it's just bros commenting on women or messaging them or stuff like that. I think we have to just stick together, as a community, as men, as women, as a whole, and really just call people out for being toxic and just collaborating on everything.
Yeah, there was a girl who shared a video of herself doing some flourishes last year, and I thought it was cool to see, so I reposted it and said, hey, give her a follow. And someone from the same country as her messaged me, and he was like, why would you recommend her? She's so trash. There's so many other people that you could be posting and promoting. It's such a waste for you to share her instead of other people. And I was like, well, first of all, don't tell me what to do, and second of all, right? That's so mean. So last year I gained a bunch of weight, and there were a couple of photos of me online that some people I met in my trip to Asia took photos with me and posted it on their various social media networks like Facebook and Instagram and so on. And people would see these posts and they would write in their own language like, oh, wow, he's gotten really fat. And I read these and I'm like, because it's just pixels on a screen, but you read them in the tone where it feels addressed to you personally, one-on-one.
Yeah.
And it kind of bummed me out a little bit because it was something that, it's not like I went out and intended to, become a Stay Puft dude or something like that. there are other factors involved.
Stay Puft. Yeah, to age us. Good job.
So, I think that what's happening that's led to a toxic culture is the fact that it takes a lot of practice to feel like you're on the same technical and expressive level as the other artists that we hold to our esteem in the cardistry community. So the other way that people try and feel equal to their graders is to cut them down. Through what is basically, a democratic version of commentary through commenting. So, some person who maybe is into cardistry just for a couple of years, who doesn't have the same chops of Daniel Lin per se, can say that a Lotus in Hand can go F themselves because of their 5 minutes windows and fake scarcity with their cards, according to this person. That's not what I'm saying. And it, can you imagine what it's like to be the people who are the target of these and reading that? It's no wonder why some people stop answering DMs after a while. Because it just becomes this faceless stream of negativity sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I think there's definitely you're always going to get negative feedback, right? And I think there's positive negative feedback and negative feedback, right? Where and I say positive negative feedback because not everybody knows how to deliver that, right?
Yeah,
there's a lot of
criticism.
People, yeah, like there's a lot of people that, you know, and let's take people from Boston, for instance, or New York, are going to deliver that constructive criticism differently than people from California, you know. But I think what it comes down to is, you know, there's so many different ways, whether it's cultural or whatever, that have that delivery, right? And if you are doing things that are out of the box or different, you're going to get reactions that way. You know what I mean? Especially, I think, if it's, if people are going to take it personal, and I mean personal not because they're making fun of their mother or something like that, but because they're, you know, maybe they're not able to do it, you know, in 5 minutes because they're at work, or, you know, and it's their favorite deck brand, or do whatever their reasoning for saying, you know, F those guys, or, you know what I mean? I think, yeah, I mean, that's obviously based on the person and why they said that or whatever. It doesn't make it right or wrong, and it doesn't make it right or wrong, you know, for Lotus and Hand to do that. Whether I agree with it or not, you know, what I have to say, it doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? I think it's just based on how we think it should be done, which doesn't mean anything, right? Like, who's to say that I think it should be done that way? It's your company, right? It's like, why didn't you put a purple arrow on here instead of a white? Like, why the purple arrow, dude? When I do a fan, all I see is black. Why isn't it like a little arrow in the corner so I can see something when I fan it? You know, it's like, something can always be said about something, right? Yeah, I mean, it's obviously frustrating. We have to, and I am at fault 100% about sometimes saying F those guys, you know, and I'm not saying like Lotus in Hand or what, like, you know, I say it sometimes, and I think it's, I think in human nature, sometimes when we feel attacked, that's our attack mechanism, our defense mechanism, you know. It's like, oh, we're fed up with something, so we have to say something back, you know what I mean? And it's not always constructive criticism. Sometimes it's just ignorant words that, you know, we shouldn't say, you know. Like Caitlin got a message the other day, and she wrote about it right here, and this guy messaged her and he says hi, and she goes, hey, like, super friendly, and he goes, how are you? And she was like, good, and you? And he goes, where are you from? And she goes, Canada. And he goes, I hate Canada. And it's like, bro, like, honestly, why would you? And then he writes back, like a day later or something. He goes, what's your favorite deck? And I was like, I told her she should have said one with a Canadian flag on it. Like, yeah. It's just people. I mean, I don't understand, but people just do stuff like that. And I think they just are just oblivious to the fact that they are hurting people, that they're not, you know, have.
Yeah, I think there's that quote which is like, never attribute malice to something that is easily be attributed to ignorance. I'm butchering the quote, but I think a thing that some people have to realize is that Magic and Cardistry tend to attract people who are socially awkward. And I can say this because I was like that. I started off as a super shy kid. When I was on the school bus and people talked to me, I had to like whisper in their ears because I was too shy to have other people like hearing what I was saying to them and stuff. And Magic got me out of my shell. Like, when I learned it, you can't, like I said, perform Magic for yourself. You have to go out and show it to people. So I built my social skill through showing Magic throughout the years in high school and so on. And that's how I began to, you know, become more of an ambivert. You know, like, I still get drained from social events, but like, I'm okay in front of an audience now. I can talk to you guys, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I get in conversations with some people who message me sometimes where it's very clear that they don't exactly have a sense of boundaries. And so they'll badger you with like a bunch of questions in rapid succession. not realizing that you probably just have a life and need things to do. And I get back to them when I can.
Right.
But it's clear to me that like a large portion of practitioners in Magic and Cardistry are people who don't have the best social skills, and that can lead to misunderstanding sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's not their fault because, you know, like as I was saying earlier, I used to be this annoying hound to Dan and Dave when I was 15, and you know, like I was lucky that there's no like online record of that for me to cringe at. But people now, their whole life is online, and you know, you can see throughout the years how they eventually grow up and mature and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I am close friends now with some people who messaged me on YouTube a while ago, so like, oh my god, I'm your #1 fan, and that parallels the exact relationship that I had with Dan and Dave, whereas I was the same. Oh my god, I love you guys. I know you're #1 fan, and I would ask question after question after question, the same way that people are talking to me now and badgering me with questions. So I just say pay it forward, man.
No, I agree 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, pay it forward and also be appreciative of the you know, what got you to where you are. Yeah, I mean, really just, and I think people forget that sometimes, but I think as a community, you know, not just obviously you, but all of us as a community as a whole have a kind of responsibility to each other and to the community and the future members of the community to make sure that we do kind of create this welcoming, helpful environment and try and prevent the negativity as much as we can. And granted, it's obviously impossible to prevent all negativity, but I think the biggest thing there is for us as a community to respond properly to that negativity, you know? I mean, and not to, you know, I think the other thing that you see a lot of times is, you know, this kind of this response to negativity where people will then attack the person posting the negativity. And instead, you know, a simple statement like, you know, is that really necessary? Or come on now, like things like that, just to call them out in a way that's kind of more of like, really why? Like, you know, a lot of times though, you see that follow-up negativity almost perpetuates it and it becomes like a trolling situation, which is just terrible. But yeah, I think it's tough. And it's especially tough too in a community where you have such vastly different age ranges, I think, you know, and levels of maturity.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I'm definitely to blame. You know, I have my battle against negativity is, I guess, fierceness is a good word to use. You know, it's like, and I think it's just my tolerance level for that kind of behavior. I think, I don't know, is that the best way to describe it? And although, you know, I think it's interesting because you know, there's a fine line between negativity and holding someone accountable for their actions, right? And holding people responsible for their actions. And I think, and I guess that's basically what you said, Tyler, is there's a way to deliver it. And I think some of us are a little more like than others. You know, but again, that's, you know, cultural or where we were brought up or whatever, you know, but I think there definitely is a fine line with, you know, how it needs to be addressed and should it be addressed. There's some things that are just better left like, whatever, dude. And then there's other things where like, dude, this is how it is. This is what needs to be done. This is the line that we're drawing, you know, and I think we just need to find out where that balance is as much as we possibly can. You know, there's going to be mishaps and mess ups along the way, right? But yeah, I think trying to control that negative stuff, like the real negative stuff that's like hurtful and out to make people feel unwanted or not good enough or stuff like that, you know. Well, sorry to.
So I'm gonna lighten the mood a little bit here. Somewhere, here we go. This is from a while ago. So the okay, but Kevin, the real question is not related to the conversation we just had. That's what Caitlin on the spot. But Caitlin wants to know when your gag decks are going to be released. And now I'm curious about your gag decks.
Yeah. What are these?
Speaking of trolling.
Yeah, right.
So this all started when I found out about a website called MakePlayingCards.com.
It's a dangerous place.
Yeah.
Basically, like anything you want, you can print on a deck of cards. So I was walking home from work one day, and all of a sudden, I was talking to Oliver Sogard on Facebook Messenger, and for some reason, I was like, "Yo, I don't think this has ever been done before, but what if you put like a giant butthole on the back of a playing card?" So, there's like tally hos, right? And orbits, and the Virts has that too, with the lines coming out and stuff. And so I'm gonna partially censor this, but I went and printed it. This was the first like custom deck that I made.
And I love that. I love that NPC actually is like,
they don't
let's
even
make
care.
it.
Yeah, they don't even care.
Yeah,
I'm gonna cover the hole, but look at how wrinkly this fan is. It's awful.
That is terrible,
dude. But wait, when did you print that?
I printed that in like 2015.
Dude, you know how good that deck would look now, though. Dude, that fan would that spread would be.
Oh
so
my god.
good.
Well, the thing is that the picture is asymmetrical, so like the fans got a little bit of variance when you have them weaved in different ways. But I messed up with the box because I wanted this to be kind of opaque so that it would look like it was censoring it, but it's very obvious what this is when you see it.
You should do? You should get 52 different buttholes and then do it.
Oh my god.
Gradient, like Lotus in Hand. So it cracked me up to no small degree that there was someone at NPC staring at a giant uncut sheet. And they had to slice them up and put them into, different packages.
That alone
so
might make it.
You know what though? You probably made their like 3 days it took or whatever it was. That they probably still to this day talk about that deck.
They definitely still tell that story at like dinner when they first meet people. They're like, "Oh, what's the craziest thing you've seen on a deck of cards?" Well, this one time someone requested a deck of buttholes. So good.
The first question a lot of people ask me whenever I show that to them in real life, they're like, "Is it yours?" And I'm like, "No."
So I was alternating between.
I have no ways of proving this, but no, it's not mine.
That's good. We don't need you to prove it, buddy.
I was alternating between the "Is it yours?" or "Where did you find this picture of a butthole that you used?"
So here's the
did
thing.
you just Google buttholes?
I'm gonna use a euphemism here, but when you type in the word "a-hole" on Google Images, you just are presented with pictures of like people who are mean and selfish,
right?
So those kind of a-holes, like metaphorical a-holes.
That's
so you have to type in "gaping a-hole."
Oh my god!
To find images that suit
Oh man!
Dude, you should have NPC foil it. You do foil. And then gild it.
Or like brown gilding.
You should sell. I have a perfect idea. Sell it to anyone worldwide, and they'll probably sell 5,000 of them.
That is
It'll be perfect. It'll be perfect.
Brutal deck. I mean, it's great, but like, I can't imagine like, oh man,
anal one worldwide.
I just like. I just imagine this progression where that wins like deck of the year, and we just see it plastered everywhere. Like it wouldn't be it would be an amazing journey for this butthole deck, but like, oh my
thanks,
god.
Caitlin. See what you did.
So that's how this started. It's tamer from here on out. But I'm reminded of like I went to MIT and they had this sign that says like getting an education from MIT is like using a fire hose as a water fountain.
Right? All right.
So that's probably what this first deck did to MPC. Probably very wary of any future submissions for me. So I made that, and then a while later, I made this gag deck called Jerry's from eBay.
Jerry's from eBay. All right.
Have you heard of this?
No, I'm excited though. It sounds like an interesting concept.
So the gag is this: you say, "Hey man, I got these Jerry's from eBay. Check them out." You pass them to the person, and when they turn it over, the back is this.
That's true.
Dude, that's so good.
That's so good. I love it.
Every single card is just a screenshot of the order page.
That is awesome.
Oh my god, that is funny.
Dude,
Yeah,
that is so good.
Thank you.
You should put those out.
People would clamor for those. That's
have-
funny though.
I have to modify it because this actually has the the seller's information on it.
Yeah, the new ones, the seller's information's at the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's too funny.
cool.
See,
Dude,
this
that's
is
so good.
this is the blessing and the curse that is makeplayingcards.com.
Yeah, but dude, you know what you should do? You should come out with just a series of random gag decks that like that. Just do it.
I
And
actually have no shortage of I have no shortage of those because when I was on an airplane last year, I just for some reason started like jotting down some ideas on my phone, and as I started to write it, I started to laugh to myself harder and harder. And by the end of the flight, I had 200 dumbass ideas like in one document.
Oh,
for
that's
the
amazing.
Worst kinds of horrible decks.
Dude.
I won't mention what they are because like I would like for them to be a surprise when they come out.
Yeah, of course.
But you know, this is my portfolio so far. So we have the a-holes, and then we have like Jerry's from eBay.
I love that.
The next deck it could be controversial. Not as controversial as the a-holes, but like given what's happened politically in the last few years. These are the.
I'm kind of scared.
Yeah.
You don't have to be like. These are the rare Pepes. So it says rare Pepes do not steal on a self-made box.
That's
and so
that's what Caitlin's talking about. She needs your Pepe deck.
The backs of the 4chan logo.
Oh, God.
And every single card is a different rare Pepe that I chose from a folder of thousands.
I love it.
Of Pepes.
That is
Some
so
of these
good.
are upside down because I'm so lazy, but like there's just so many.
It's so good.
There's Iron Man Pepe, Mosaic Pepe, Sonic Pepe.
I like how you know the names.
This one here, rare Pepe do not steal.
It's so funny.
And the unfortunate thing is that Pepe started off as this cultural icon through Boys Club by Matt Fury, a comic book. The first time you see his character. He's at the urinal in the bathroom. He pulls his pants all the way down, and his friend's like, "Hey, Pepe, why do you pull your pants all the way down to pee?" And Pepe says, "Feels good, man." And that's how it started. That's how it started. Just like an innocuous, dumb, like pee joke from Boys Club, and then the alt-right kind of took ownership of it, and that's
destroyed it.
Yeah. So I feel sad that the meaning of these have changed from being like a form of currency online to becoming a hate symbol. There's actually a documentary that's out that I haven't watched yet, but it's about the whole Pepe thing and them trying to reclaim it. And it's called Feels Good Man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. in the documentary or in the trailer, at one point they asked the original artist, Matt Fury, why is he called Pepe? And he says, because it sounds like pee-pee, like when you're pissing.
Oh my god!
And I thought that was such like a perfect
so
answer.
Good.
Yeah,
it really is a perfect answer. Oh my god, that's funny.
That's great. The last of the quote meme decks that I have, I'm gonna do a kind of magic trick with these. So this is a design that we all know and love. It's the bicycle rider backs.
Here, I'm going to make you big on the screen again, too. Hold on.
Oh, cool.
There we go.
So this is a design we all know and love, if there's not glare on it. There we go. The bicycle rider backs, right? But the thing is, if you turn these sideways, they turn into bicycle wider backs.
What?
So
nice.
All these cards are just a fat version of... Like, it looks like I'm tilting them and that they're regular size and huge, but they're actually like this here. And the faces are all like that, too. So it's like your screen has been stretched to the wrong aspect ratio.
I love it.
Yeah, so these are called wider backs.
Dude, you got to put that stuff out, man.
I actually talked to Bicycle about this, and they were like, well, the modification of our bicycle image is something, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, which now, they've completely halted that, which is a bummer, but
Yeah.
That is too
Well,
funny.
now that they've been acquired by Cartamundi, you know, there could be a
Nah.
possibility that these become a thing. Because the box for these would be like the early knock boxes, right, where you put them in
Oh, yeah.
sideways,
Nice.
it goes on the top.
Yeah.
So my dream is to have them just hanging in Walmart, just like this, you know.
That would be
One of
so
the
dope. That would be so
like
cool.
they're really disorienting to handle in person because, like, you know, just look at this. This feels like the screen is tilted or something.
Yeah, it like
Yeah.
it's like visually assaulting almost, like, but like in the
And-
best way.
And what's weird about it is that it looks kind of square.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Even though this is a sideways card.
It's so weird.
Yeah, it looks like it's too tall for just a sideways card.
Yeah.
That's so weird. That's so cool though.
Caitlin, she's like this.
so-
I said this about all the decks.
So for this one, I actually got an email from Make Playing Cards saying that to be careful with this because it was violating copyright.
And they still printed it.
Which that's what I love though. Like they don't care that it violates copyright, but they're gonna let you know you should be careful. Like,
Well, you know
Yeah.
the funny thing is, so there was this guy that posted an orbit deck.
Yeah, it wasn't
It
even
was
a guy. It
like-
was like a kid.
It was like a dude who designed his own orbit deck. It got like foil paint, like foil on it and everything. Like it was clearly his own design, but it was an orbit deck. And I put a video up on Instagram, and he got it from NPC, and they'll print anything. They don't care.
You know, they definitely don't care.
They don't
I've been
care.
mad
They'll
by
print
people
assholes.
at-
They'll print a-holes if they were told to.
Oh man, you got like if you think that's something, you should hear about shafts. But I'll get into that next time.
we can touch up on that on the after show.
Oh man.
All right. Well, on that note,
Yeah, any questions, guys, from the audience before we kind of wind things down for the evening? Caitlin did say too that the wider backs screwed her up handling them, which is like I can definitely see that. Like visually, they just like it's like a weird optical illusion that really makes you like you have to double check yourself. And I think it's probably because it's such an iconic back, we know what it should look like. It's
Mhm.
cool. I love it.
yeah.
So I'm not seeing anything roll in here, guys. I know there's a little bit of lag, but that being said, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on tonight, man. Honestly,
Very
Yeah.
welcome.
we have had an absolute blast. I think that not only was a significant amount of knowledge dropped tonight, so for anyone who's checking this out and for whatever reason got to this part without watching the whole video, go back and watch the whole video. There is so much great information about Kevin, cardistry, the history of cardistry, and everything under the sun. It's worth checking out.
Yeah.
We had a great time tonight, though, man. This
Yeah,
has been
dude,
fun.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, exciting. All right.
Before we wrap up for the evening, we have two things. We're going to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, and immediately after that, we are going to let you know who next week's guest is. So make sure to stick around, and you can find out who next week's guest is going to be. Doc's Playing Cards, the driving force behind Lit Playing Cards, Juice Joints, and McClure and Stark. Keep an eye out for what's to come next in 2020. Follow along at Doc's Playing Cards on Instagram or docsplayingcards.com.
Marvelous decks, masterfully crafted, meticulously recreated with a specialized printing process that utilizes multiple holographic foils and sculpted embossing. No compromises were made when recreating these feathers at a zoomed-in scale. Pre-sale starts 9/26/2020. Stay tuned for remaining details. MarvelousDecks.com or Marvelous Decks on Instagram. And
so one question did come in, and it was from Anthony earlier, and he posted again. And I want to bring this up because I think it's a key one for you, Kevin, here. Any plans on having Momentum shirts, sweatshirts, hats, etc. in the future?
I don't have plans for Momentum merch, but I do have plans for Steal Like a Cardist merch.
Dope.
Yeah, I've had a couple T-shirts that had been designed last year that I just haven't put out yet because I would have to order them first and model them and everything. But yeah, there's.
We'll definitely keep an eye out
Yeah.
for that stuff. Yeah, no, I think that would be cool. And we're definitely going to drop the Steal Like a Cardist link below, along with, I think I got about, let me see, 29 other things that I'm going to be linking in the comments below. So, like I said, there was a ton of knowledge in here, and I think it's always important to link out to a lot of that stuff. So there's going to be some interesting book recommendations, videos, people, all that stuff in the comments below. So make sure to check it out, guys. We really do appreciate, first off, everyone who came out to check out the show tonight, all of the support from everyone. Thank you so much. We really, again, we do this so that you guys have a fun show, and we would still do this without you, but it's so much more fun with all of you. And we really, we love having you guys get involved in the audience and really ask fun questions, get involved in the ridiculous stuff, look at butthole decks and, and everything in between. So thank you so much. We hope that your evening has been good and you aren't too scarred by the butthole.
I think Tyler's a little uncomfortable right
now.
now.
I'm honestly I'm good with it. I think it's hilarious. I also though I'm sitting here thinking to myself man, what's someone gonna think if they somehow just jump to that moment where it's here's a butthole deck, and you're just like, what am I watching here? But that is Deckin Around, and we do appreciate all of the weird, fun things that happen on this show. So thank you so much, everyone. Before I forget, next week we are going to be having Anna de Guzman on the show, so make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on that episode. Click the bell when you subscribe so you get notifications on any future videos. We are really pumped to have Anna on. Should be an exciting episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much, everyone. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and enjoy your evening.